And we are live.
Good evening, everyone. I am calling this meeting of the Historic Districts Review Board to order. Today we are May 10th, 2022. This is our 46th virtual meeting. And I understand that our next meeting will be live from City Hall. So Melissa, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes, ma'am. Chair Rios.
Here.
Vice Chair Katz.
Here.
Member Beachside.
Here.
Member Bienvenue.
Here.
Member Guida.
Here.
Member Larson.
Excused.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Are there any changes to the agenda, Carly, or any board member? Or Frank? None? Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved by Katz. Bienvenue seconds.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Beachside.
Yes.
Member Bienvenue.
Yes.
Member Guida.
Yes.
Vice Chair Katz.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you, Melissa. We have minutes of April 26, 2022. Any changes to these minutes? Member Katz.
Yeah, on page 5, let me see, in this second sentence, second line of my comments, it should be, and other clauses, not other cases, be renumbered. And then in the next paragraph, the second sentence should be, all but one of the votes were 3-0. Those are the only changes I have.
Thank you. Anybody else have any other changes? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve these minutes as amended.
Bienvenue moves to approve the minutes as amended.
Katz seconds.
A roll call vote, please.
Member Beachside.
Yes.
Member Bienvenue.
Yes.
Member Guida.
Yes.
Vice Chair Katz.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
And thank you very much. Next, we have 10 findings of fact and conclusions of law. Any changes to any of these? Member Katz.
Yeah, I have a problem with 619 Acequia Madre. There was one of the changes that the applicant had sought on the primary facade, which was the south side of the house. There was 1A and 1B. This was 1B. This was on the far left side where the kitchen is, and it had kind of a overhanging roof, and he wanted to change that to a to build it up. And he never, that was a primary facade, and a change to a primary facade, I think there needs to be an exception. There was no exception requested for it, and staff's presentation did not include that change, although the applicant's presentation talked about it. But I don't think it's anything that we approved, and I don't think we could have approved it without any request for an exception. And I'm not quite sure what we do about that, but I just think that it needs to be clarified that that was not approved. I suspect if the applicant wants to do that, I mean, that was redoing the roof of the kitchen. You know, if he wants to do that, I suspect he could come back and have that done. But I don't think that what we did included that. And I'm not quite sure how Frank or Carly want to handle that.
Yeah, I would like to hear comments from Carly and Attorney Rubalid. And I don't know if we have to just delete that portion, or since I was not there, I would like to hear comments from Carly and Attorney Rubalid.
I think first, I want to make sure, I'd like to look and make sure what was presented like what the packet is one thing, and that was what the board gets in advance. And that's what the public gets in advance.
Yes,
And that what the difference in the presentation is, just so that if that was in the motion. So because the motion is based on the packet unless it's otherwise specified, and we can correct the facts, findings, and conclusions of law based on that. That's the way I think would be. That's the appropriate way to handle it, I think.
so we should probably just remove it from today and deal with it at next meeting.
I think so.
Okay, thank you.
Any other changes? And I didn't know if Attorney Rubalid wanted to comment. I guess Carly kind of took care of it. And maybe Attorney Rubalid agrees with her. But
you know, I go back over, I watch the replay on YouTube to make sure my notes accurately reflect what took place. And I think all I saw was that other than the exception criteria that was articulated for the windows, for reconfiguring the wall, that were both approved, and for denying the height exception for the wall, which of course was denied. I don't recall that there was a discussion about heightening the facade on that south, heightening the parapet on the south facade there that was primary. So I believe my conclusion when I was typing up these findings and conclusions were that the planners decided that an exception wasn't necessary for that, because that is something that the planners can conclude. Nobody mentioned it, so I wasn't really inclined to interject my objection.
okay, Attorney Rubalid, I appreciate your thoroughness, not only in this case, but in all cases. But because there seems to be a question on this and it needs to be investigated a little further, I would suggest that this be removed till the next meeting. If there's an objection to that, I would go forward with approving all findings of fact and exception and conclusions of law, with the exception of 619 Asekimadr. Do I hear a motion?
I will move to approve all of the findings and conclusions except number 6 at 619 Acequia Madre.
Is there a second?
Bienvenu seconds.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Beachside,
Yes.
Member Bienvenue,
Yes.
Member Guida,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kath.
Yes,
The motion has been approved.
Thank you very much. Any matters from the public? Let me see. I see that Stephanie Bedonato has her hand raised, as well as Joseph Carnes. Let's see, Stephanie Bedonato, I'll call on you first.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to point out that there is a residence at on Don Cubero at West Houghton. It's on the corner there. They came in several years ago and asked you for a 6-foot wall that would be perpendicular to the sidewalk. You refused that. They didn't really care. They constructed block structure that wasn't mortared. So I guess technically it wasn't really a wall. That sat there for years. And just recently they put up they took that down and actually put up a wall, which I probably is within the height allowed in the district, but I believe it's more than 4 feet. So I wonder how it got approved. There was nothing that came to the board, and there was no permit up, at least that I could see, when the construction of the wall was going on. So I'm bringing that to your attention because it was a structure that you did have jurisdiction over. And there is a new wall along their driveway, perpendicular to the sidewalk on Don Cubero. Thank you. Oh, and one more thing. I would ask that all of you go over and look at the Vladimir Contemporary Art Museum. and see what a huge visual impact that has on the rail yard. I know you didn't have, I mean, you did do what you could do, but again, I just think we should all appreciate how much the landscape is changing with these massive buildings. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Staff will probably take your comments under advisement and look into that Don Cubero address. Next, we have Joseph Carnes. Mr. Carnes, you wish to make a comment this evening?
Thank you, Chair Rios, members of the board. If I could respond briefly to the discussion that just took place regarding 619 Acequia Madre, I'd appreciate it. 3 quick points. 1, I'm reading from the first page of my responses to the exception criteria. Number 4 states removing the overhang along the western portion of the primary facade and adding a new parapet. That was included in the submittal. The plans reflect exactly what I just said. And my recollection is that the motion from member Guida, which was seconded and approved, called for approval of the submittal as made. And so I believe it was addressed and that there's no need for additional investigation into this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Comments? I will ask, since Vice Chair Katz was chairing, do you have any comments? And Carly and also Attorney Rubeli.
No, my only comment is I think it needs to be looked at. I mean, if in fact there was an exception requested for that, this was not reflected in the packet, and I don't believe. And you know, let's just look at it. If what Joseph says is true, that'll be fine. But it's not clear.
I agree with that. Okay, I hope you will be satisfied, Mr. Carnes, in reference to that. We will just take another look at it. And if what you say is true, that's what's going to happen. That's just going to be stated in the findings and conclusions. Next, we go to staff communications. Ms. Carly, what do you have to tell us?
A few things, just a couple tonight. Madam Chair, I've got we have the senior planner job posting that is up right now. It's up through the 13th, but that will likely be extended happily. But that is the senior planner position for the Historic Preservation Division. So if you know anyone who is interested, please forward it along. It's the link is up on the HPD website, and it is also it's up on the city website. Then second, the 2022 Heritage Preservation Awards. The award ceremony will be held on May 19th. It's going to be at San Miguel Chapel. That's at 401 Old Santa Fe Trail, and the reception will follow at El Zaguan on 545 Canyon Road. We'll be happy to see folks there. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Were you going to reveal to us who the recipients of the awards are, or are you going to keep that as a surprise?
I think we're going to keep that as a surprise. And then we also have had some board members request to present awards. If you as board members are interested in presenting, please let me know, and please let me know which award you're interested in presenting. We will have a time limit, and I will prepare you for that if that's what you would like to do.
Yeah, thank you, Carly. And does that start at 5 o'clock? Is it
5:30?
5:30. Okay, everyone. Hope to see you there. And we will head on to old business. We have 1 case under old business, and we have 8 cases under new business. So let's all work together to try to get through this in a very efficient manner. And I will ask Carly if you will help me with the 2-minute limit from the public when they are speaking.
You may hear a cell phone jingle.
I would appreciate that very much. So old business, this is Angela's case. It's located at 964 Acequia Madre. And I do believe this is a contributing house. Angela, would you give us your report, please?
Good evening. Yes, Chair. Is it possible to see my slides?
It is. We're already seeing it. Thank
Great.
you.
This case is 964 Acequia Madre. You all have considered this property in a previous case to establish its primary facades. The applicant returns with some changes, and this photo you're seeing is of the primary facade, which is north facing. It has the door, window, and then close-ups of that. The applicant wishes to remove the door and swap with the window and make it a double door here and move this window here. And that's the proposal for that facade. This is the existing floor plan. And the other changes on this proposed floor plan indicate that the applicant also proposes to fill in a portion of the back portal, and that is less than 10 feet of this primary facade, which is the east facade, designated primary. So the applicant has requested an exception for locating its addition less than 10 feet from a primary facade. And the other change includes removing this skylight and installing one here. And the elevations of this show the front change, the north elevation. This is again the existing, and this is the proposal. And this is for the east elevation. This is primary facade designated, and this is the existing back porch. And this is to be filled in, and it's less than 10 feet off the primary facade. The south elevation changes to the windows as you see here, as well as this change from this to this. And finishes are that the desert blush is the stain color for the wood, and the sage green matches existing trim, and it'll be El Rey cementitious buckskin, excuse me. And with respect to the existing portal was designated not part of the primary facade status at the last case. The existing windows are wood double hung, and the house is at least 100 years old. There was discussion at the last meeting about the placement of the doors and windows. If those were original, the board thought so, and designated, like I say, that north facade primary except for the portal. And so the applicant proposes to change the portal to a more territorial style, or without the brackets. Excuse me, it's actually going to be more Pueblo, Spanish Pueblo revival. And the applicant has requested an exception to locate an addition less than 10 feet off of the primary facade, as well as removing historic material. Staff recommend or doesn't find that all the exception criteria are met, but the board may find so upon further testimony this evening. Otherwise, staff recommends approval of the application as it complies with the general design standards for all H districts, as well as the downtown and east side district standards. And that concludes my report. It's time for questions.
Thank you very much, Angela. In reference to the exceptions, there's two sets of exceptions that need to be met, and you do not feel that the applicant has met either. Is that correct?
I have found that the applicant has met a few of each, but there are criteria, but not all, that I believe they did not meet.
Thank you. And the primary facades are the north, excluding the portal and the east, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other board members have any clarification questions? Member Benvenu.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is either for you, Angela, or for the applicant. It doesn't matter to me who answers. And by the way, I'm seeing 1520 Canyon Road on my
Oh.
screen.
I'm sorry, I advanced.
Good call.
There we go. Great, thanks.
Hopefully,
Just
yeah.
two quick questions. One is, do we know how old the what we're calling the historic window is on that front facade?
This, the
The one that needs the
historic-
extension? Yeah.
it's estimated that it's part of the original material. It's at least 50 years old. It's a historic window.
So that would go back to the very original building of the house, which is at least 100 years ago. Is that what we're believing in that case?
For the most part, there was the John Murphy survey was done for the last case, and the board determined that those were historic windows and that the portal was not conclusively historic.
Right. Okay. And you, it's very difficult to see them, I guess, because there's storms windows on top of them in the photograph. But how would you describe the windows underneath the storm windows?
They are double hung 3/1 light pattern and in good condition. They have screens as well. It's a double pair.
Okay.
Pretty much.
Okay. Obviously, they're actual divided lights and potentially very old glass in those panes as well. Is that possible?
I believe so.
Okay. Well, that helps me with the window. The other exception, though, I just want to focus on that south, I guess it's the southeast corner where that addition is. If I understand the plans correctly, is there still a little bit, like 3 feet of the portal that's currently there that's going to remain? And that the addition is set in basically 3 feet from the exterior wall?
That's correct. It's not
okay.
an entire portal infill. But
Okay. I guess I'll just make a comment that's, from my perspective, that's a very, very minimally intrusive alteration to that primary facade. And the difference between a 3-foot setback and a 10-foot setback in that particular location to me is insignificant. So I would have no problem approving the exception for that particular request. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Bienvenue. Vice Chair Katz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really like the look of what they're planning, but I have some problems with the exception criteria, and I raise it now so that they can perhaps answer it. I agree with Member Bienvenue that you probably won't see much, if any, of the extension in the back for so it won't be an obnoxious, not exactly complete following of the rule. But in both situations, changing where the entry is from the living room to a room next to the living room and putting in closets in the bedroom. I mean, if that's considered a hardship, that we really would like our bedroom a little bigger and we'd like more closet space, it's hard to imagine what wouldn't pass that test. And it bothers me that we're all too willing to say, oh yeah, they want the bigger bedroom, so that's okay. I mean, that provision, I can imagine typically folks who own houses maybe close into town and you know, and their family grew, and so it was either sell the house that great grandpa built with his hands 75 years ago and move to a bigger house, or make some accommodation for either elderly parents or a bigger family. I mean, I understand that's so that you can continue to live in the historic district exception. But I don't see how we allow, well, I just want a bigger bedroom. That's what will allow me to live in the historic district. Without that, I couldn't possibly live there. That seems a little facile to me. Thank you.
Any other board members have any comments or clarification questions? It appears not. I will go to the applicant, and that is Chris Purvis. Is Chris? I don't see him. Is Chris there?
I just press, he's moving over to panelists, Madam Chair.
Yeah, I still don't see his name, but let's see.
There we go.
See me now?
Oh, hi, Chris.
Hi, Madam Chair.
Would you get Chris sworn in, Melissa?
Yes. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Christopher Purvis, 518 Old Santa Fe Trail.
Thank you.
Chris, tell us about this project, and maybe you want to address, further address exceptions to the two issues that we are looking at tonight for the
Madam
exception.
Chair, thank you. And yes, I'll make an attempt to answer Vice Chair Katz's questions. We'll start on the front. It's much more difficult because it is the front. But clearly the brackets and that portal that was stuck on the front of the building is just not part of the original building. So changing it to, I would say more Pueblo, which, changing the columns and adding the corbels to them is just a way to kind of make this building blend in a little more. And then in an attempt, I have an owner that would really he's trying to eliminate steps in the house. So we're trying to keep the exact size, same size of the opening, but I acknowledge that those windows, I don't think they're 100 years old, but they're single pane. And given the age of the house, I'm sure they're more than 50 years old. So I don't really know how to address any more than that. It's a desire, trying to keep the openings so that we're not changing them, but we are changing the material within the openings. Then to answer the other question, which is the rear infill a portion of the rear portal, I checked and you cannot see this from the street because we held it far enough back that basically you can stand right on the corner of the bridge there and look, and you just can't see it. And back around the back of the house, somebody has done some kind of funky additions. The bathroom portion back there was really not well done. And so this is just an attempt to clean it up and make the rooms a little bit more like a traditional room would be. They stuffed the closet in a room, pushed the bathroom wall out. So this is just trying to clear that back into more rectilinear rooms. I acknowledge that you cannot claim, the hardship is very hard to claim. And so I acknowledge that you can never say, oh, it's absolutely a hardship. I think that's true of almost every exception that comes before the board. Hardships are hard to prove. But I do believe that certainly the one in the back is having no negative impact on the streetscape or this building. And because it's going in under a portal that was put on obviously later in the 80s, we believe, I think if you look at John's report, we are not materially affecting the shape of this building. It doesn't change the way it looks from the top. Can't see it from the side unless you walk around the back of the building. Back to the one in the front, it really was a question whether the board could accept making one opening taller or not. And if not, I understand.
Thank you for your comments. Chris, do you have anything further at this moment?
No, Madam Chair.
Member Guida, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With regard to our exceptions process and our hardship rule, I agree with the applicant that the hardship rule is often the most difficult item to apply. It's a peculiarity of our code. I guess, with cases like these, I like to think that we have an exceptions process for a reason. And in terms of judging those exceptions, I would like to advocate for a more kind of design and people-focused approach to these rules rather than one that's based on kind of a legalistic approach or invisibility or the test of like, well, can we rearrange rooms being the measure of whether or not this person could live in the district. These are vernacular buildings. The swapping out of windows and doors and repurposing of rooms is part of the architecture. What the applicant has proposed here on the front facade is sensitive to the form and layout of the fenestration on this facade. A single window replaces a door of the same width. They're taking historic material and moving it to that opening, and a double door is replacing a double window of the same width. On the whole, I consider this a very, very sensitive approach, and all the more so because of the nature of building in Santa Fe, where those items are, moving around in time due to the occupation of the house changing over time. So I consider this a highly sensitive change. Likewise, when it comes down to actual historic material, we can't know exactly if these windows were original. They may be 50 years old. The historic material seems to matter less to me than the design appearance, than the character of the district, all of which are not harmed by this proposal. Secondarily, I would say that the addition on the back is equally sensitive in that it doesn't propose a new mass or a new form or something radically different from the house. It incorporates itself very sensitively into an existing feature on the house. The 3 feet, I would agree with Member Benvenu that the 3 feet versus 10, still does the same thing in terms of differentiating itself from a primary facade. But I think, it's reasonable to propose this thing. And I think that the applicant's responses on the exception criteria on all fronts, I would agree with in this project.
Thank you, Member Guida. Member Beachside. Member Beachside, you are muted.
Sorry, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to ask Mr. Purvis if he would maybe elaborate a bit more on what you mentioned your clients need in terms of eliminating steps in the house, because I do think that can be considered a hardship. It's pretty difficult to find a house in Santa Fe without steps. And so I noticed on the plans, I believe you're planning to raise the floor. And is that part of the process of trying to accommodate this house for folks who may not be able to handle the steps? Especially with respect to the front facade, I think.
Remember, Beachside, if you go in the current front door, you step up into it, and then as soon as you leave that room, you have to step back down again. So the idea of moving the doors was so that you could come in on the flat. And yes, further in, we're doing the same thing. We are trying to even out those floors because it makes the house, less trippy.
Sure. Yeah, thank you.
So, Mr. Purvis, basically, other than adding the approximately 77 square feet of the enclosure in the back, the footprint of this historic contributing building remains, correct?
That's correct.
So what you are doing is you're changing the interior of the house, which the board, of course, doesn't have any purview over.
That's correct, Madam Chair.
So any other questions or comments from board members at this time? If not, I'm going to take it to the public. Anyone from the public wishing to comment? Stephanie Benenato, please swear her in. Melissa?
Okay. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Stephanie?
I said I do. Can you hear me?
Yes, please state your name and address for the record.
Stephanie Benenato, PO Box 1601, Santa Fe, New Mexico. I don't believe that the applicant has met the criteria for hardship. The applicant actually said that, you know, needing a bigger bedroom or closet is not a hardship and understands that it doesn't meet that criteria. And I agree with Member Katz that if you decide that having even one step up or down in a house that you know had the steps before you bought it, that doesn't mean that you have to change the outside of the facade. You can do things inside not to eliminate steps without having to actually make all these changes to a primary facade. And the idea that somehow it's highly sensitive, I don't see that as a criteria for or criterion for granting an exception, nor do I see that the code, which is actually a legal, you know, laws, they're not like suggestions, that to say we should really be people or building oriented rather than actually looking at the clear and, if it is clear and simple language in the code, I think is a huge mistake. I think that that opens you to appeal over and over again, because you will decide one person should have a bigger bedroom, but the other person shouldn't. And again, I just find that you're going to establish a very bad precedent by allowing these kinds of changes simply to make changes with inside the house. There, I would imagine, could be other ways of doing this. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. I don't see that there is anyone else from the public with a hand up. Oh, yes, I do. Britton Wilson. Could you kindly swear in this applicant, this commenter?
Yes. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Britton Wilson, and this is my house at 964 Acequia Madre, Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Thank you.
Yes, good evening. Please state your comments. It's always good to hear from the owners.
Yes, thank you all. I really appreciate the time that you're putting in on this, and also Christopher Purvis has been wonderful to work with and very sensitive to our needs and a good listener and just very helpful along the way. So I really appreciate all this. I just had a couple of brief comments as I was listening. I want you to know that this is about aging in place. And so this is not about having a bigger bedroom or that, although, you know, that's always nice, but in the rear, to speak to that, what we're trying to accomplish is access to the bathroom from the bedroom. So if you look at the floor plan, not to go into the depths of it, but right now there's no way to get from the from the bedroom of the house directly into the bathroom. So what Chris has designed is a clever way of being able to go out of the bedroom, from the bedroom into the bathroom. And so that's a very specific intent. Also, you can't tell this from this floor plan, but there is a level change between the entrance to the bedroom and the bedroom itself. So again, to try to make this a smooth glide here into the proposed master bathroom. So I we weren't really looking for a bigger bedroom. It's actually a pretty generous sized bedroom. What we were looking for was direct access into the bathroom. And we've been working on this and, you know, trying to figure out what makes the most sense. And I thought Christopher came up with a really brilliant plan. And then as far as the other comment about the steps, yes, there definitely are many homes that have the step issue. But what you find in this house is there's every time you want to go someplace, from the living room to any place else in the house or from the front door, you've got to go through this middle section here, this room. And that is, it's like a step and a half down. It's very, very odd and it's very disconcerting. My wife and I are in our 60s. We are retiring to this spot and we're concerned about aging in place. So I understand that maybe that's more of a issue that we have in selecting this house. But to us, this is a good way to solve the issue so that we can stay there and that, you know, we can enjoy living in our home for many years to come. The design that we're working on is for accessibility. So thank you for letting me just make those comments.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Member Guida.
Madam Chair, I'm ready to make a motion.
Just a moment. Member Katz, did you have something further?
Yes, I do. Thank you. I apologize that I hadn't realized that there was a step up in the living room and not a step up in the other room. And I am at the age where, boy, that makes a difference to me too. So I understand exactly what the applicant's talking about. And likewise, the access to the bathroom from the bedroom. I think he has explained why these changes are necessary for him to continue to live in the district. And I very much appreciate his presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Guida, I will entertain a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Case 2022-005-033 HDRB 964 Acequia Madre. I move that the board approve the project as submitted, finding that the applicant's responses to all of the exception criteria satisfy our concerns.
Is there a second to the motion?
Which I will second.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Member Beachside,
Yes.
member Bienvenue,
I vote yes. I'd just like to make a comment. I had my hand up earlier, but that's.
Oh, I'm sorry, Member Benjamin.
It's not a problem at all. Not a problem. I just wanted to state, just with respect to this issue on the hardship, that I do think that that is an important concern in all of our cases, that we not give short shrift to that, which is an independent exception criterion. And I do think that we need to be careful never to let that swallow up the others by being too cavalier in its application. But I also think that these three exception criteria work together, and that what is a hardship is not an independent determination. In some cases, as is here, it depends on the circumstances of the individual cases being presented to us, and that needs to be taken into account. It's not a completely standalone requirement. And in addition, hardship doesn't necessarily mean severe hardship. And I think we have to be careful about that as well. Hardship means a difficulty. This is clearly a difficulty, and there are severe hardships in addition to that, but that's not the language that our code utilizes. So with that, I vote yes.
Thank you. Continue with the roll call.
yes, ma'am. Member Guida,
Yes.
Vice Chair Katz.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Prince. We will go to the first case under new business, and that is also Mr. Purvis's case, and that's located at 564 Garcia Street. And Carly, would you give us your case that you are doing this case?
Yes, Madam Chair. Let me move my controls over, and here we go. Okay, this is a little bit more of a unique case and simple in a way. So we are looking at 564 Garcia Street. It's in the downtown East Side Historic District. This is the location. And we're specifically looking at this garage. This is a completed project. The board approved this project in 2017. They came back with, because it wasn't constructed to what the board approved, they came back to approve the additional height, the change to the window, or the window had to be changed because it wasn't divided light, a number of things. So that's in the packet. But since this has been approved and was constructed, the project was completed, no changes have been made since then, but during the final, prior to the final inspection, this project did not meet the final inspection, and the homeowner more recently became aware of it. So that said, its permit is out of date, cannot be renewed at this point, and all its HDRB per the code, its HDRB approval is out of date. And the approval lasts for 3 years, and then with a potential of 2 1-year extensions, excuse me. And we are a couple years beyond that, or almost, yeah. So, but here's a look at the elevations. These were some of the original plans that were presented in 2017. What we are approving, or we are recommending for approval tonight, is the completed project with the additional 4 inches of height on it. Here were the original, some of the original drawings. Of course, this went to divided lights. Excuse me. I'm sorry. So staff recommends approval for a reissuing of this case. So essentially a renewal of the HDRB approval. And I'm going to turn it over to our applicant, Christopher Purvis.
Okay, I just wanted to make a comment. So this is really basically the applicant needs to get the permits, the required permits, or renew the required permits, correct?
Yes.
Madam Chair, if I might offer a little clarification. So
yes, Chris,
they
go right ahead.
I'm sorry. They built this project and they got all their approvals, and they were, but when Gary came out for the final historic, they didn't have the plans on site. They had lost the plans, near as I can tell. And the builder didn't tell anybody that had happened. He just let it go. The owner let it. So basically that they just let it lapse. And so it was approved. It got all the other approvals until it got to the final historic. And then they let it lapse. And then they called me whenever, a couple of months ago, and said, can we just get these final inspections? And the answer to that, of course, is no, because your permit's expired. And then when we went to renew the permit, we found that it was too long since the board had looked at it. That's how we ended up in this situation.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Board members, do you have any questions or comments in reference to this application, to this case? No. And let me see if anyone from the public wishes to comment. It appears that no one from the public is commenting.
No hands, Madam Chair.
Pardon?
I see no hands, Madam Chair.
Right, thank you. So I will entertain a motion. Member Guida?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Case 2022-005-222 HDRB 564 Garcia Street, am I correct? Yes. I move that the board approve the application as submitted.
964, Member Guida.
5.
964.
It's
I'm
5.
sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
564.
564. Chris?
You're right.
564? Okay.
564.
I'm looking at the wrong one.
Katz would second.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Beachside,
Yes.
Member Bienvenue,
Yes.
Member Guida,
Yes.
Vice Chair Katz.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you very much. We go to the next case located at 400 Sunset Street. This is for a status review, and this is Daniel's case. And I just want to caution anyone this evening presenting a status review not to go into any proposals, what you are proposing. This is, we are looking at the case for a status review, and that's what I want to stick to. Daniel.
Madam Chair, Daniel is not here tonight, so he cannot be here.
That is correct. Carly.
So I will be showing portions of the packet and going through the staff report. We do not have replacement presentation, so to speak, in this at this quick turnaround time. So hold on just a moment. I have had this packet opened up, and it looks like it needs to be reopened because it's just frozen on me. So just give me one moment and I'll reopen it. Okay, apologies for the delay on that. Seemed just to close as I had it up. First things first, there is a correction to the staff report that needs to be made. In the staff report, it states it is 200 Sunset Street. It is 400 Sunset Street. This is a status recommendation. And we have got a few images up to show from the packet of the HCPI. But the staff recommendation is that currently this residential structure at 400 Sunset Street that is non-contributing in the downtown and east side historic district remain non-contributing. It is a duplex. The lot was created in 1971. The structure is visible on an aerial photograph from 1973. So it is within that time period, that 50-year time period, or just about, because it's presumed to be constructed in 71 or 2. It's a long rectangular form, with aluminum slider windows and lintels above them, which may be original, but none are. Those could be considered character defining, it says in the staff report. There's a portal with parapet and wooden post on the south facade. Let's take a look at some of these images. And here's the lot. Here's the form of the house. Here we go. Open this up a little bit more further. Here are these aluminum slider windows, little portals. And here are some photographs. I'm going to zoom in on these. We do have a facade diagram. You can see the long east facade there. There's a bump out on the west facade. The south has a little portal here, and so does the north. I'm going to scroll back up to the facade diagram and just restate that the staff recommendation is for this building to remain non-contributing. And I will turn it over to the applicant, which is Christopher Purvis.
Thank you. I will see if any board members have any questions or comments at this time. Those of you that went on the field trip, do you have any comments? It appears not at this time, so I'll turn it over to Mr. Purvis. Oh, excuse me, Member Benvenu.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I was just going to comment in response to your invitation that this is a very undistinguished building, to say the least, and I'd be very hard pressed to imagine someone could make an argument that it contributes to the downtown and the character of the downtown and East Side Historic District, based on my review today.
Thank you, Member Benvenu. Mr. Purvis, what do you have to tell us? You agree with staff?
Madam Chair, I do agree with staff and with Member Bienvenue. Seems to be a consequence of the rolling 50 years. At some point, we're going to get into buildings that we don't like. And other than that, it's the plainest thing I've ever seen. And so, you know, I'm not going to say what we were going to do to it, but the idea was to make it a nicer building because this is, you know, it's not helping much. But I don't think I can say much besides that.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Let me see if anyone from the public wants to comment in reference to this case. I don't see any hands that are up. Yes, Stephanie Beninato, and she has been sworn in.
Stephanie Beninato, PO Box 1601, Santa Fe, New Mexico. I would agree with Mr. Purvis that at some point you are going to come to buildings that you're not liking. And in fact, you've already come to buildings that you're not particularly fond of, even though they are historic and have some contribution to the neighborhood or streetscape. I was not on your field trip today, so I can't say how this fits into the neighborhood, but I actually like the facade that has the portal on it. And I think it's the east one with all the windows. To me, that is, if you were going to designate it as contributing a character defining feature. And just because something's simple, that's part of sometimes being vernacular, that it is really simple. I have a feeling the board will just say, who cares, and let this be non-contributing. But again, I think that we do need to consider different building types and also different levels of intricacy. And just because something's simple doesn't mean it's non-contributing. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Beninato. Anybody else from the public wishing to comment? It appears not. I'll take it back to the board. Member Guida.
I'll make a motion, Madam Chair.
Just a second. Member Beachside, do you have something to say?
No, sorry, I was going to do the same. Thanks.
Okay. Member Guida.
Case 2022-005162 HDRB 400 Sunset Street. I move that the board maintain the non-contributing status of the building in line with staff recommendations.
And Member Beachside.
Beachside will second.
And roll call vote, please.
Member Beachside,
Yes.
Member Bienvenue,
Yes.
Member Guida,
Yes.
Vice Chair Katz.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank
Thank you.
you all.
Melissa, and thank you.
Good
Chris.
evening.
Next, we go to case 834, this is the location, 834 Allendale. And this is Angela's case. So may we hear your presentation?
Madam Chair, I believe this one is also Daniel's.
Okay, well, let's hear. Oh, yeah, you're right. Let's hear from you.
Comment. Okay, excuse me. 834 Allendale Street. This is another status review. It's a residential structure. We're looking at the HCPI. Constructed as duplex in 1960, Spanish Pueblo revival style. It has a non-contributing status, the Donga Spar area district. Let's see, I'm going to just show us, we're going to look at an aerial. And in the staff report, I believe one of the walls are cut off on the facade diagram. So I think it's important to just see that aerial. That said, we scroll down to page 25 here, and we'll just take a quick look at the facades. The recommendation is for the east and south portion to be as primary, and I believe I have the north is number 10 as primary as well. So here we're looking at the portal here with the steel casement window. This is the north elevation, which is proposed as primary. We have a west elevation in the back. You can see that's more recent alterations there. This is the east elevation here, and you can see there's an addition right here after 1969. We have a stone wall that is an older portion. We also have a couple structures in the back, one that's already contributing. The HCPI note, the staff report is not clear on whether or not its recommendation for what this recommendation for this is. I believe what was happening in the staff report, it was deferring to the board, but there were some edits that were still yet to be made to the staff report. And essentially, this was supposed to have a contributing recommendation associated to it with a front facade as primary designation. So that is not clear in the staff report, and so I'm clarifying that. Now, the wall in the front is a newer addition there, and the stone wall is a later addition. And I don't believe that is part of the recommendation. And the recommendation, well, my comments were that this the stone wall should be recommended as contributing. So I'm clarifying that as well. Let's see, that said, I'm going to go ahead and go up to the primary facade, the facade diagram. Okay, here's the facade diagram. And because the wall is cut off here, this is not the easiest to see, but that is the front yard. And then behind the chicken coop / tool shed is right here. Okay, so I'm just going to re-review the recommendation is that it be designated contributing, the house, with facades 1A, 1B, 2, 3 right here, and 10 up here as primary. And then we would add to that would be the wall, the stone wall down here on the south, and then the chicken coop with the garage doors, that front and east facade as primary. And that concludes presentation from staff.
Thank you, Carly. Carly, so are we looking at, okay, the main house, obviously, and then an accessory building?
Yes. So we already have a contributing building back here. The tool shed / chicken coop is right here off screen, and right there is where we're looking at that.
Okay, so that's already contributing, and we are looking at that as well.
We're looking at this one as well. Now this garage, that was made contributing in 2016 by the board. So there's no reason to go back and redesignate that.
Thank you, Carly. Board members, any questions or comments at this time? Member Beachside.
Thank you. Carly, I have a question about designating facade number 3 as primary. That's on the facade where there's been an addition that, in my mind, kind of has changed that full south facade. In addition, the facade number 3 seems to have a window that's very close to that addition. I'm not sure how that, I guess it happened because it wasn't a primary facade, but what do you think of that in terms of being able to preserve something that has a window that's not compliant with our code because of the addition?
So generally, you know, I think non-compliance can be that you can still make something primary as, I mean, if there's a good case for it. In this case, I think the strategy might have been that, you know, the corner preserved is part of that I mean, maybe that view of this is part of that facade. I think that was the thought behind this. But another thing to think about here is how we think of primary facades, and this is the way it's been practiced for years. It's been my understanding is that when we have repeating features like a window that are the exact same, it's not, and there's nothing extra special on a certain facade, then and then there's no, maybe there's a massing or a roof parapet line or something like that that makes it more special. We would make that a primary. But in this case, there are 2 repeating windows side by side. They don't show symmetry. I mean, one can make an argument for it. And I think that was the argument Daniel was going for. But I will leave you with those thoughts, is that when it's repeating, we often preserve one, or definitely if it's on a notable facade with other features that really make that building.
Okay, thank you for that, Carly.
Member Guida?
Thank you. Carly, just to clarify again, we are designating facades on the duplex and on the chicken coop as part of this motion, right?
Yes, and the wall.
And the wall.
We really want to be comprehensive when we approach these properties so that they don't have to come back for, you know, a wall.
Okay, and can you show us the north facade again, please?
Yes. Just scroll past it. Here we go. And I'm going to zoom in a bit.
Yeah, I think I would agree with Member Beachside. I mean, you know, the distinction, and this is often the case in Daniel's recommendations, we often get a recommendation just because something is old that it should be primary, or old material that it should be primary. And I'm far more focused on, you know, overall design features and their contribution to the streetscape and the district. And while this facade too, you know, conveys the notion of a duplex that may or may not have been built all at once, you know, I'm kind of more suspect of this one, particularly its contribution to street front. I don't see anything, I mean, I see old things, but I do not see anything particularly remarkable about the design of this facade. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Benvenu.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple things. First of all, just following up on that, on Member Guida and Member Beachside's comments. I think maybe we were talking about 2 different facades. I think Member Beachside was talking about facade 3, which is on the opposite side of the one we're looking at here, and that this is the north, or facade 10. that's on at least my screen right now. So yeah, that's 3, which has the window that repeats the street facing window. And Member Beachhead makes a very interesting point about it being kind of a conundrum whether or not that's still, we would consider that primary when we wouldn't allow it under our code to be built that close to the corner. But it does seem to me, at least looking at it, that that's a significant corner, the way those 2 walls interact with each other as they face the street. The other facade 10 that Member Guido is referring to does seem much less distinguished to me, though. So I'm not sure I would agree with that being primary. The other comment I had is that I appreciate the clarification on the chicken coop, because when we visited today, it was pretty clear that the chicken coop looks like a significant or contributing structure on this particular property and should be protected as such, and had not been so indicated in the staff report. So I now understand that that's also recommended, and I would completely agree that that would be a contributing structure, as well as the recommendation that the east facade be primary. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Katz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, looking at that picture that's up there now, I think the 1, 2, and 3 really give a feeling for what the house was historically. And I think they work very well together. And it gives you a much better sense of the house. I totally agree with Member Guido that 10 really is not very distinctive, and I don't think we should make that primary.
Thank you. As we all know, this house is located in the Don Gaspar Historic District. Carly or Attorney Rubali, does the 3-foot rule apply to the Don Gaspar District?
Madam Chair, I'll pull this up right now, but to verify, but I'm pretty sure that is under. I think that
What rule?
3-foot rule.
3 foot to the corner.
3-foot rule from a corner.
That is under the downtown east side, but I want to verify.
I know it is under the downtown east side, but is it in the Don Gaspar?
No, ma'am, it is not in the Don Gaspar. It's fine.
In the meantime, while you're looking for that, I'll ask for public comment.
Madam Chair, could I ask one last question?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you. I'd forgotten to ask Carly before. The portal on the street facing facade doesn't really have its own facade designation in the plan or the staff report, and there's no discussion about it. Is that something that needs to be separately designated, or is that incorporated into facades 1A and 1B?
Trying to think of how, member Bienvenu, I'm trying to think of how we normally do this. And I think I know the intent is for it to be incorporated in 1A and 1B. If we want to make it very clear, I think we should specify it in the motion.
Okay.
Thank you for that, Carly. Vice Chair Katz.
Oh, I'm sorry. I should lower my hand. Thank you.
Okay. Did you find anything, Carly?
Madam Chair, it is not in the Don Gaspar Area Historic District portion of the code.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Thank you very much. I think we need to hear from the applicant. And I believe that is John Odell. Is he present?
John Odell, can you raise your digital hand? I'm seeing some different names. One is owner.
Okay. Oh, I saw two
There we
hands. Betty Bell Emmerich, is that going to be the person that is speaking, or is anyone? Let's see. Well, would you, let me see. Now I don't see any hands.
They are promoted
Just muted it. You
panelists.
just
Here we
muted
go.
No, I unmuted it.
It says mute. Oh,
We hear you.
can you hear me? Hi, this is John Odell.
Oh, okay. Would you swear him in, Melissa?
Yes. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
This is John Odell, 1523 Taos Street.
Thank you.
Mr. Odell, you have the floor. What do you have to tell us about this project? Do you agree or disagree with staff's recommendations?
I would disagree with staff recommendations. We did have a report done by John Murphy, who I think is also going to speak. We find that we would agree with your discussion that elevation 10 doesn't meet or should not be designated, because actually when you're standing on the street and looking down at elevation, you don't see as much because it's not a very wide driveway. But the picture was taken from the back looking front rather than the front looking back. And then the side elevation on the south side, that short portion, because that whole elevation has been radically changed throughout time, I find it difficult to, it doesn't really fit with the style of the front. And the front does have the character of the Adobe style. So that, if that's going to be the primary designation, we don't have an issue with that. But
So I'm understanding from your comments that you do agree that the home should be contributing?
well, we don't agree that the whole house should be contributing, but I think, but the facade, we don't have an issue with that front. So,
Turn it over to John.
and I think John Murphy can explain that logic. Is he should be listening, or?
Yes,
Can we move right
he has his hand up, but I want to see if any board members have any questions for you.
Okay.
Any questions at this time, board members? If not, I will take it to John Murphy. And John, you need to get sworn in. Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Sure. John Murphy, 2833 Plaza Verde, Santa Fe, New Mexico, 87507.
Thank you.
Okay, John, what do you have to tell us?
Sure. Madam Chair, I'm really here just to answer any questions or provide any clarification. I think Carly did a good job presenting the duplex. It is fairly modest. And these conversations over primary facades have evolved over the years, and they've gone in different directions. When I was staffed to the board, it really was the elevation that had the most architectural distinction and also historic preservation, historically preserved, as I should say. And there was a privilege to the public to look at these facades that were considered primary and to have an understanding that they would be preserved. So I agree with Member Guida that 10 in my mind is not, there's not much articulation to the facade. It's not very well seen either from the public right away on Allendale Street, and heavens no, not from the alley. And then on the number, I think it's number 3, there is some consideration of what we are really talking about, since the laundry room kind of damaged the full extent of that elevation. Sure, you can cut that piece, that very short piece, and say this is something that has been preserved over time since 1960. But looking at the full expression of the building, that's a very small piece to preserve, and it doesn't represent the full facade in its historical presentation to the street. So when I came to my conclusion, I really thought only the primary facade would be assigned to, I would say, the east elevation, which I believe Daniel has as 1A and B and number 2.
Thank you, John. Let me see if any board members have questions for you. Any questions for John Murphy, board members? Carly, can you take it back to the elevations?
Yes, Madam Chair. Our east elevation?
Yeah, and that's the one that the applicant and Mr. Murphy are agreeing should be primary. Can you take it to the one that they are disagreeing with?
Yes. See, here's the here's the north, and then the other one is this one right here.
And that one is, how is can you identify the location of that?
That one faces south. So it's just on the corner of, this is facing east. This is the one we saw just a moment ago, and this faces south, and with the laundry room addition there.
So staff recommended southeast and north, and there's been discussion in reference to the north. Perhaps as not having character defining features or not being contributing to the district. Member Guida.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate Mr. Murphy's comments and agree wholeheartedly with the kind of more simplistic approach that focuses on the public contribution and both the historic and design merit of the facades that we select. I'm always confounded by, a house which seemingly has 4 sides, but when we have a report from staff and we have 21 facades to choose from, I don't think it needs to be that complicated. And I agree with Mr. Murphy's expertise on this issue and history in doing this work. I guess the question for Mr. Murphy or for the applicant, on the east facade, Carly made earlier that we can memorialize it in the motion to include the portal that makes sense. The lighter stucco walls that we see infilled in the facade, is there any indication of whether or not those are, part of the original structure, or if the applicant would consider them to be contributing, or were they added at a later date?
John or the applicant, can you answer? And you are muted, sir.
Speaking from my own perspective, I can only potentially tie them to the unstuccoed CMU wall that's along the driveway. The aerials don't, we can't look into the portal per se, so I would tie them to that time period, and therefore I don't consider them original design. And then I don't feel that they contribute to the portal. They actually seem to be sort of a distraction to its form.
Thank you. Okay. I would agree with that.
As would I.
I'm going to take it to the public. And let me see, Stephanie Benedetto, and you have already been sworn in.
Thank you, Stephanie Benedetto, PO Box 1601, Santa Fe, New Mexico. I would hope that you would actually designate the facades that are 1 through 3. I think the corner there is actually, that view of that corner is, to me, character defining, and I go down that street all the time and by that house. And if you were just to designate 1 and 2, I think it's very flat and not, you talk about not really doing much for, the house. And I also philosophically disagreed that there should be only one primary facade. I think it has to do with character defining features and the attempt to preserve that. And then I also had the question about the wall and whether that wall has already been designated as historic or not. It was falling over. It has been repaired, which is great. But I wonder about its status because I do believe that it is historic. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe the board is addressing the wall this evening. John Eddy, would you swear him in, please?
Yes. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is John Eddy. My address is number 14 Avenida Campo Verde, Santa Fe 87506. Thank you, Madam Chair and board members. I appreciate staff's interpretation of this property. First and foremost, I think the stone wall is extremely valuable on this property. I may be the lone voice in the wilderness here when it comes to the north facade, which I believe is number 10. If that could be put up on the screen, I'd appreciate it. And I'll explain why.
Carly, can you show us that? Thank you.
Yes. Now, it would be easy to dismiss this facade, but what really caught my eye was the portal right where the hand is. Now, because of the angle of view here, it's very easy to overlook that, but those portals communicate with each other. And when you have a situation like that, that contributes to the character defining part of that house. That's all I just wanted to point that out. I think that's an important distinction to be recognized. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Eddy. I don't believe, let me see anyone else from the public. I don't see any other hands. I'll take it back to the board. I just wanted to say something that I've noticed on this house is those metal canales. Are those metal? Or are
Yes,
those?
they are.
Pardon?
Yes, they are metal.
Yeah, that's what I thought. In the
They're-
house where I live, the oldest portion of the house, which was built back in the 20s, that has these metal canales. And I know that older homes have those metal canales. So that's something to consider as well. Member Katz.
Yes, I would make a motion, Madam Chair, unless other
Please do
people have
so.
comments to make.
No more, I don't see any more hands. So please make your motion.
Okay, in case 2022-005164 at 834 Allendale Street, I would move to make the house contributing and designate facades 1, 2, and 3 as primary. I would also move to make the south wall, the stone wall, contributing, and I would thirdly move to make the old chicken coop contributing with the east facade primary on it.
Thank you. Is there a second to this motion?
Yenvenu seconds.
Madam Chair, a friendly amendment
Yes.
to clarify that the designation of the east facade include the portal in its entirety and exclude the half-height infill walls at the base of the portal.
Thank you, Anthony. I appreciate that and agree that that's a friendly amendment.
Member Beachgrade?
Right, I just wanted to explain why I won't vote for this motion, because I don't understand how we can designate facade number 3 as primary when, if the laundry room addition was proposed today, we would determine that changes the status of that facade. I understand the logic, but I just don't think that is consistent with what we would do if presented with that change in the future, theoretically. Thanks.
Thank you. Vice Chair Katz?
Is it because of the 3-foot rule?
Well, that and just as it's just sort of a disharmonious, as Mr. Murphy stated, the addition of the laundry room just tacked onto that facade changes that what used to be a long facade similar to the north, which I think really does change the way it's seen and interpreted.
Okay, I mean, to me, if the facade alone, if that was the only thing, I would certainly agree. But because it so helps define what the original house was, I think it is a defining aspect of the building. Thank you.
Thank you both for your comments. And Melissa, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Member Beachside?
No.
Member Bienvenue?
Yes.
Member Guida?
I agree with Member Beachside on Facade 3, but I'll vote yes.
Vice Chair Katz?
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you very much. We will move on to the next case, which is located at 1520 Canyon Road. This is Angelus. Angela, may we hear your presentation?
Now,
Definitely.
how's it going?
Slowly.
Okay, so you starting?
Chair, members of the board, can you see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. 1520 Canyon Road is up for a status review and primary facade designation. This is the approach on Canyon Road as you go up Canyon Road. This is the front of the house. So Canyon Road, the original footprint was built in 1956. It's a recent Santa Fe style version of a mid-century ranch style built in a vernacular manner. The historic cultural property inventory describes it as territorial revival vernacular style. Its east elevation, which is this side, features it's a converted garage. In 1965, it was converted to a heated space. It's got pardon me, I want to go back to the north elevation, which this is the north elevation, its original elevation. It features a single door and a 3-panel light window and a pair of double hung, 2 divided lights, 3/1 light pattern. And those are its original windows. Like I said, the converted garage on this side was from 1965 and reflects that in terms of its windows. And those are aluminum sliding windows. And a utility room was added to the rear, which is right here. It's a little distorted, but that's the utility room added in 1980. That's filled in. And this carport and storage shed were added in 1995. The house is located on the south side of Upper Canyon. It sits approximately 4.5 feet above the road. It's distinctive in that this is a retaining wall. This is a low river rock wall, which is historic as well. The height of the yard wall, as you can see, increases and evens out at the level of the house, and the yard wall in the back is also a retaining wall of the same vintage and material. It sets apart from other homes in the streetscape, and I believe it helps define the character of the Upper Canyon Road historic agrarian landscape, originally agrarian. The simple square house stands out and appears essentially unchanged in its profile and historical features. So staff believes the building warrants a contributing status based on its age, maintained original windows and simple construction despite historic and non-historic additions. The house's simple 4 square form, scale, and original architectural features help establish and maintain the character of this district, particularly in Canyon Road area. Staff recommends the original north elevation western facade be designated primary. Get you to the facade map. That's this facade and facade number 8. Or is it 1 and 2? No, it's 1 and 8. Excuse me. I see in my staff report it says facade number 2, but it is the west facade, which is number 8. And staff recommends that the house be designated contributing, and that facades 1 and 8 be designated primary facades. And with that, I conclude my report. Stand for questions.
Thank you, Angela. And is the wall also being considered? I didn't hear you. You said the wall was contributing?
Yes, I want to
or we are making
make sure that the wall is included in the contributing recommendation.
Okay. Thank you. So you are recommending the north and the west elevations, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Member Guida.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for clarifying the wall. I do have an additional question on the wall. Angela, if we go back to that view from the north that shows the curve of the wall and what you identified as the old or infilled garage, if the garage door was there where that window is now, I mean, could we imagine that the wall has been revised since the house was built?
Member Guida, that's an excellent question. I believe that it obviously served as a garage in 1956. In 1965, when this was converted, it's possible that this was changed then, which would make it also a historical change.
Okay. And that tree could probably be as old as 1965, I suppose. Thank you for clarifying.
Member Benvenu.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just plugging in my laptop here because my battery is low. Thank you. Well, I wholeheartedly agree that this should be a designated contributing. I think this is a very important structure on Upper Canyon Road. Just for the purpose of sort of public discussion and the record, I would quibble with the description of this as a ranch style home. And I think that's significant in this case. We've had a couple of true ranch style, vernacular ranch style, New Mexico's version of that come before the board, one on South Armijo Lane that was designated contributing, which I thought was an error, and one right around the corner on Cerro Gordo Road that was designated as not contributing. So there was some discrepancy there, but I do think that the true ranch style vernacular houses are non-conforming, and I don't think that they could be considered contributing in the East Side District. This, on the other hand, though, doesn't really bear the hallmarks of a ranch style home. It doesn't have the gable roof, the deep overhanging eaves. It doesn't have the mixture materials on the facade. It doesn't have the really long, low slung horizontality in the front facing facade that all characterize, what we think of as ranch style homes. Particularly when you look at the original structure before the garage was converted. That's just, to me, an archetype of a vernacular Santa Fe Adobe square house built by someone for their family, and utterly worth preservation for that reason. I think it's got either a flat roof or maybe a slight shed, but certainly not the type of gabled roof we'd see on a ranch style house. So, I just think that's important to make that differentiation. I would agree with the earlier historic report that described it as something like territorial vernacular. If we had to give it a description, I would just consider Adobe vernacular. And I do think that it's a significant house in and of itself, but particularly at that location. And it's very, very well preserved, even with some of those additions that have been made to it. The only other comment I had is I was just clarification, Angela, on the wall that is being recommended for status as well, because when we visited on site, there was not only the wall on Upper Canyon Road, but also retaining walls that completely encircled the property. And I wonder if you have any position on the walls on the south and east sides of the property, which are very similar in construction to the ones on the north side that face the road.
Member Bienvenue, yes, that I am including in my recommendation that the low rock wall be designated, be included in the designation of contributing status, and that includes the wall that it ceases here and then it picks back up behind the house. You can see some of it here, and then it also runs along the east elevation. So the entire wall.
Okay, great. I appreciate
My
that.
recommendation.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Member Benvenue, for your comments. And I agree with your comments in reference to the architectural style of the home. I think sometimes people are thrown off because of the roof line of the house, and they'll tend to give it a ranch style home, when I truly think that this is a vernacular adobe style home that was built probably by whomever with their hands, with family members, or the owner of the house probably built the house. That is what I am guessing. Any other comments, board members, at this time? If not, I will open it to the applicant. And it looks like a person named Molly is under panelists, but if you will swear, Molly, I believe Pruitt.
Correct.
If you will swear.
Yes, okay. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Molly Pruitt, 747 Old Las Vegas Highway.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Pruitt, good evening. You have the floor.
Hi.
What do you have to tell us? Tell us if you agree with staff's recommendations or if not.
You know, Angela's been really wonderful giving us some direction. I'm not an architect, I'm a general contractor. And although Christopher Purvis has been wonderful in training me over the years, we really are looking for direction on this. And we do agree. I wanted to just address the garage because we do know the owner was able to contact the Padilla family. The parents are the ones who built the house, and the daughters over the years lived in the house and owned the house up until I believe 2016. So we were able to have owner was able to have several conversations with the sisters. And so we were able to really get some great information. I wanted to address the garage. That front window on the north facade, that was a garage. We do know that from the Padilla sisters letting historic recollections of that. And so we agree with Angela that should not be part of the primary facade, because the windows were converted in 1965. And I will acknowledge that was more than 50 years ago. And just yes, the roof is slightly sloped. So I know another board member had that. So I think that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me see if any board members have any questions for you. Any questions for Ms. Pruitt, board members, at this time? I don't see any hands, so I'm going to take it to public comment. Anyone from the public wishing to comment on this particular case? Stephanie Beninato.
Stephanie Beninato, PO Box 1601, Santa Fe, New Mexico. I'm happy that you are making this a contributing building. And I think the evidence of having a garage there that was converted in 1965 could be considered. I mean, it is historic, so I'm not sure why you would not include it, although again, it's part of the history of the building. I would definitely hope that you would designate the wall as contributing and including perhaps retaining walls. And I see this building not as territorial anything, because where's the brick for one thing, and where's the, you know, triangulated pediments, but as a vernacular building that has a slightly sloped shed roof. And the mass of the walls, I think, distinguishes it greatly from any ranch style that, you know, that would have been built at that same time. Thank you.
Thank you. John Eddy also has comments, and he's already been sworn in. Yes, Mr. Eddy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm sticking my neck out here, but is the word prairie style at all relevant here? Perhaps not at all. I'm seeing heads being shaken.
No,
Okay.
it is not, John. Do not.
I will retract that statement. Okay, thank you. To me, I know this property very well, and if you look in the extreme left corner of the photograph, you see Matthias's house, which was discussed last week with the pitched roof. Exactly, thank you. I agree that this house should be contributing. I would suggest that perhaps if the garage were included in that, exceptions might be able to be made if they want to make alterations to that garage to make it more attractive and tie it to the house a little bit better than it had been. The most important part of this property is the stone walls throughout, as I see it. The stone walls throughout Upper Canyon Road are hugely character defining of that neighborhood. And this wall in particular, you can see it's been very lovingly restored and repaired in multiple places. And the walls in the back, I'm assuming, are the same. There are agricultural terraces to the left and the right of this house, which tie into Matthias's property as well. And these walls were built to help to terrace these architectural spaces. I'm sorry, agricultural spaces. Excuse the tongue tightness. So that's the basis of my feedback, but I do really want to protect these walls throughout the Canyon, Upper Canyon neighborhood. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Eddy, for your comments. Those walls are beautiful. I love our stone walls when I see them. I just love them. Member Guida, did you have something?
Ready to make a motion, Madam Chair.
Okay, let me see if Member Benvenu has something further.
I was going to make a motion, but I defer to Member Guida. I'll just make the comment that I also agree about the importance of the walls. These riverstone walls in that, you know, with the cement mortaring is extremely characteristic, and they really can't be built anymore. So there's not enough material for them. And these are really great examples of that construction.
Thank you. Member Guida?
In case 2022-005173 HDRB 1520 Canyon Road, I move that the board designate the house as contributing in line with staff's recommendations, that facade 1, the north facade, which excludes the garage, be designated as primary, and that the stone wall, the portion parallel to Canyon Road and excluding the return along the driveway, be designated as contributing also.
Is there a second to this motion?
Beachside will second.
Is there any additions to the motion? Any friendly amendments? None.
Well, I'll throw out, oh, I'm sorry. Don't
Member
have my hand up.
Katz, Vice Chair Katz?
Yeah, did I not hear that the west facade was also recommended for primary? I would.
Yes, the
make a
west
friendly-
facade. I believe that the maker of the motion agreed with staff's recommendation, except.
I did not include the west facade in
Oh, you didn't
the
include.
motion.
Is
I
that,
would, as a friendly amendment, include the west facade and include all of the stone walls.
Not accepted as friendly.
Okay.
Okay. Member Benvenue, did you have something?
I was going to do exactly the same, so
Okay.
nothing further.
Member Beachside?
Yeah, maybe, can I just ask the board members for some discussion on the retaining walls, like why or why not those should or should not be included in the contributing status? If, as Mr. Eddy said, if they were there to sort of define agricultural spaces that seem to be still quite evident in this stretch of Canyon Road, why wouldn't we include them?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I lament that we all weren't there, because I think when you're on the site, the way that the stone walls embrace the property is spectacular. And I don't think we have a picture that gives any sense of the stone wall on the east side of the property and the stone wall that is sort of like supporting the agricultural field and back. And so I really strongly feel that the stone walls are part of what make this such a fabulous house.
Okay, thank you. Excuse me, Member Guida, restate your motion, please.
Sure. The motion was to designate the house as contributing, the north facade number 1, which excludes the garage, as primary, and the portion of the stone wall parallel to Canyon Road as contributing.
Thank you. And Member Beachside seconded the motion. Let's take a vote. Roll call, please. Vote.
Member Beachside?
Oh, sorry.
No.
Member Beachside?
No.
No, okay, thank you. Member Bienvenue?
No.
Member Guida?
Yes.
Vice Chair Katz?
No.
The motion has failed.
Okay, I will entertain another motion. Member Benvenue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll make a motion in case number 2022-005173 HDRB 1520 Canyon Road that for the reasons set forth in staff report and matters heard on the record today, that the building be designated historically contributing with facades 1 north and 8 west designated primary, and additionally all of the stone walls be designated primary. I mean contributing rather.
Katz would second.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Member Beachside?
Yes.
Member Bienvenue?
Yes.
Member Guida?
Yes.
Vice Chair Katz?
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And the next case is also at this address, 1520 Canyon Road. And Angela, may we hear your report, please?
Yes, Chair. Am I unmuted?
You are unmuted.
Okay, I'm sharing the screen. And you're seeing it?
Well, we're seeing the what was up for the previous case for the.
Okay. So this is actually the next case, and the number is case 005174, which is a remodel. of this contributing, just designated contributing structure. The applicant wishes to replace some of the aluminum sliding windows and not the original windows. This is the existing floor plan and the windows are numbered. I'm going to go to the next floor plan, which is showing where the windows are. So this is north, the front door is here. The center pane glass is proposed to be replaced only, not the window itself. And then this is the 1965 garage conversion. This window, this window, this window, and this window. And I will show you elevations which are difficult to make out. Unfortunately, the proportions sort of went wonky. What I've done is these are the top two are the north elevations. The top is existing. This is that existing shallower aluminum sliding window that applicant proposes to replace. That window, they will be Pella summer sage wood powder coated aluminum clad casements, and the trim will match the existing. Like I pointed out, this is just glass that they're proposing to replace. And on the south elevations, which is the rear of the house, this is proposed to change from this to this. And on the east elevations, which was not designated primary, this existing aluminum slider is proposed to be replaced with this divided light window. And on the west elevation, no changes are proposed. It's considered primary now. I believe one of these windows, it doesn't show, is being changed into an egress window, and it may be back here. I can let the applicant speak to that. Stucco to match existing, buckskin, El-ray. The applicant also proposes to repair the front steps and restore the concrete pad there with some brick. So I got everything there. And I recommend approval with this proposed project, finding that the application complies with the general design standards for all the H districts, as well as the downtown and east side design standards. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Angela. Why is the applicant needing to change the center panel on that window on the north elevation?
Chair Rios, I believe it has to do with insulation, but I'll let the applicant further respond to that, clarify it.
Okay, and then also on the garage, they're wanting to change that, but on the west elevation, no changes, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
This window, excuse me, this window.
Okay. Member Beachside, Member Benvenue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had the same question about the glass replacement. Do we know how old the glass is that's being replaced? Angela?
Member Bienvenue, we do not.
Do we have
It appears
any?
to be original, but it's not, we don't
Okay.
have a survey on this, but we've just designated it contributing.
It's not something I unfortunately paid attention to when we were there today. Was there anything distinctively historical in appearance about the pane itself that you've noted?
Not that I noted. I think the key is to discern whether the replacement glass will be exactly in kind.
Mm-hmm.
Should be.
Okay. And are those true divided lights, the windows that we're talking, that we're looking at on the facade that's just been designated primary?
Yes, member Beach, excuse me, bienvenue.
I'm not bothered by that. And has there, this would be a question more for the applicant, but I just wonder if there was any discussion about making that replacement window true divided light.
Yeah, I'd say that's for the applicant. I believe they're talking about simulated divided lights. If I didn't say in my presentation, that was.
Oh, it is. I was just wondering if that had been something that had been discussed. But we can, I'll defer to the applicant on that, have them address their decision. Thanks.
Okay. Ms. Pruitt,
Yes.
you have the floor.
Great.
If you can tell us a little bit more about these windows that you're wanting to replace.
So the windows are all going to be, we're replacing them with the same size windows, number one. The exception is that east side. If Angela, if you could do from the east side view. So this addition is now a sleeping area. There is no egress, which scares me. It's you know, I'm glad nothing had happened in the last 50 plus years. So knowing that we need to do an egress window, we have picked the east side window, knowing that the north would be more visible. We've also, so it is sized to that 5.7 square feet that is opening that is required. And in doing so, we're also proposing a window that would really reflect the same proportion of the windows from the west side and the north side. Yeah, those windows. So we're trying to unify, blend in. We don't want anything to pop out. That's also why we are choosing these windows with the windows from the additions. They are brown. They are not matching that green that are from the original main house. So these windows, although they will be metal clad, they match the original paint color perfectly. I also wanted to address the middle pane on the north side. Probably I made that recommendation because, again, I'm a practical kind of gal. It's a very large pane at the size of 44 inches by 51. It lets a lot of air through. So we are not proposing to change the look of it. The wood, the divided light on that original window would not change. We're just saying that center panel, if we could get some insulated glass in there, that would be lovely. The other thing I'd like to bring up is the window where the garage is. So to the left, Angela, can you just circle around there? That original, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, to the front, the north. Yes, that one. That window existing right now, the one we're proposing is 3 inches smaller in height and width. All the other windows are within 1/2 of an inch. Again, I go back to that egress. So 4 windows that were, and 1 glass pane.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments, board members, at this time? Member Guida.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question for the applicant. Did you give any consideration to changing the configuration of this horizontal window on the garage?
No, you know, it really came down to when Angela came out and visited us. We thought it was a non-contributing, well, because it was non-contributing at that point. So, you know, no, we didn't. And once she said, oh, you know, this is really a contributing factor, we just stuck with it. And as I said, the only one I'm really a stickler with is that we have got to get an egress window in that sleeping area.
Sure.
And so we have a choice of 2 windows.
Sure. And cross ventilation and all that stuff too, right? So
Makes it very lovely, definitely.
yeah.
I was going to bring that up too. Yeah.
So, and just in terms of strategy, and I mean, this plays into this issue, you're differentiating historic material from non-historic material by choosing to go with 2 window colors. Is that correct? Green,
No.
the green, no.
The green that we will be on these factory windows match the existing green perfectly.
Okay. And what's the brown trim?
It's just some, let's see if I have it. It's some brown paint.
And where does it get applied? To the trim?
On the trim of the windows. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. Yeah, so, just to go back to that north facade, Angela, if we could have that picture up again, the view from the driveway. I think you have the opportunity, given the designation, given the previous discussion, I think you have an opportunity to kind of fix something that's unfortunate about the house, and to do so in a way that, is not confusing it with historic windows, but rather brings that what was once a garage and what was once very obviously a garage into more of a congruence with the existing structure. I would advocate for putting the taller windows in there, the pair of double hungs in that opening, given the way that the board has ruled on the primary facades.
Oh, thank you.
Like I said, we're looking for direction, so
cool.
That's, yeah.
Well, and I want to make sure you have a bed wall and all that stuff too, but the east window is less of a concern if the front window can meet your egress requirements.
Understood.
Thank you.
Member Beachside.
I just wanted to I guess point out that, okay, so facades, the north facade and the west facade are designated primary, and on this facade we typically do not allow replacement of the windows, and if we do, it's because they're unrepairable, and then we require replacement in kind. So I think that's windows number 2, the large pane of glass, and window number 5 on the west facade, the guest bath window. So the guest bath window that's proposed is smaller, which I guess doesn't require an exception, but it certainly does change the dimensions. And I would argue that with respect to number 2, that a solution may be possible in the interior of the house, a storm window, or something to address the insulation requirements. But that large pane of glass intact in a historic house is pretty special, and I don't think we would typically allow that to be replaced.
So we are not asking for window 5 to be replaced on the west side.
Sorry, I'm just looking at your proposed work. Sorry. Okay, thanks for the clarification. I'm just looking at the packet.
Yeah, absolutely. And the nice thing is on these inside, you can see that they're, unlike the other windows that were later, there are little places where you could see there were storm windows.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So we will be able to, put some storm windows in those original windows.
Oh, that's great. Good.
Board members, any other comments or questions? If not, at this, Member Benvenue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just to follow up on the north-facing aluminum sliding window that we've been discussing, as I, was discussing with Angela, I understand that you're planning to replace that with simulated divided lights, which obviously would be an improvement over what's there, although I agree that the style of the window could be brought, or the opening itself could be brought into greater harmony with the rest of the facade. But setting that aside, is I think that simulated divided lights in that particular location is going to really clash with the historic facade that we just designated right adjacent to that, even though that's not been designated as primary facade itself where the window's located. Will you consider having true divided lights in that location?
Again, we're looking for some direction, so anything would be in consideration. And part of our wish is to unify this, and so I do feel that what we're proposing is more unifying than what's there, and kind of helps that blending. So
well, sure. I mean,
yeah,
getting rid of the aluminum sliding windows will be helpful, but simulated divided lights don't look like divided lights. I'm sure you know
understood.
That. I mean, they will stand out like a sore thumb in that location, in my opinion.
Well, and this brings up something for me, which was the divided lights we are proposing are to the current historic code. As you can see, if Angela can go to the west side, if we were truly to try and match those windows, we would be going against that 30-inch. And I'm sorry, I can't remember off the top of my head. But we would be probably more, especially the east side window that we're proposing, to make it, the divided light appear as the windows on the west side are, with a 3 on top, and I believe nothing on the bottom. But per code, the way it reads now, we have to also put divided light on the lower pane. I hope I'm clear.
Yeah.
We're not designing, I'm not going to get in design, but I'm just like, I thought, I'm just going to bring that up.
Mm-hmm.
Again, going back to that unifying, we would be open to that unification of it. And, you know, again, the blending or.
Right. And I appreciate that. And I just think that the simulated divided lights will not blend with that very important street facing facade.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Member Katz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with Anthony's suggested sort of design help here, that the north-facing window on the garage would really look so much better. It's not, if it were matching the other windows in the house. And I would encourage consideration of that.
Oh, thank you for your comments. Member Guida.
Yeah, I guess just one final question for the applicant. You know, with this discussion of the windows and divided light patterns, and you know, doing something that's merely compliant with district standards versus something that is more tuned to the house. You know, because I would agree that, you know, for the case here where you know, if you were proposing a lower sash with no divided lights, and you had a good reason for it, I think the board would approve an exception in that case. Yes. I could also see a logic where, you know, all new windows, and this is not based on, you know, needing to be matchy-matchy or anything like that, because the picture window is flanked by 2 divided light fixed planes that you know, that are in a straight grid. But if the other strategy was to say, okay, well, we're going to do 2/2 for all the new windows, and the historic windows we're going to leave different, I could also entertain that. And I guess, you know, where I'm at with the package as drawn, with what's been discussed, and recognizing that you know, this is not the place to kind of workshop designs, you know, would you be willing to kind of pick one of those directions with the direction that you received from the board tonight and resubmit this project for approval?
I believe so, but I would probably want to just check in with the owners.
Okay.
As if I was your general contractor, you'd probably want me to check in with you.
Sure.
But yeah, you know, they do want to move forward on this, but we also understand this is a process. So.
And I don't mean to complicate the process any more than it needs to be, but you know, but just given where we're at with the drawings and the discussion, I think, there's too much gray area here for me to make a ruling tonight.
And I guess my caveat with that is if we're moving forward, I would like some very specific direction so that we don't then come up here again and it gets tweaked or, like you said, workshopped again. So
I
that would
100% agree.
I think that would help the owners understand why this might be being proposed to be pushed off. But again, I know they would like to move forward as soon as possible.
So for me, for the record, and in the interest of that advice, I think, you know, that the board recognizes that the horizontal window, maintaining the horizontal window in the infilled garage is not important, and that it would be far preferable to bring that opening into agreement with the rest of the window openings, particularly on the north facade. For me, I would agree with Member Benvenu that true divided lights would be preferable in the proposal. And then I would say that then there's a fork in the road and a choice to make. Do you propose 3/1 window replacement? The new windows be 3/1 to follow the existing design and therefore require an exception that the board would likely grant based on what we've discussed tonight. Or do you propose a divided light pattern that is compliant, such as the 2/2, where there's a strategy for the new windows to be different from the historic? I think that covers it, unless I'm missing anything, fellow board members.
Sounds good.
I agree.
Yeah, okay. So I do want to thank the applicant because she came here with presenting us something, but I heard her cooperative spirit here. She's like, yes, I want to hear from you. I want to do what is right here. I heard from Angela in the process of getting this to the board, and now I'm hearing from the board. Help me. I want to go in the right direction. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
I do still want to hear from the public. They have the option to comment. So let me see. Anybody from the public wanting to comment in this particular project? I don't see any hands that are raised. No. So with no comments from the public, I will take it back to the board and I will entertain a motion. Oh, Carly, you have something to say.
Yes, Madam Chair. This being not a primary facade and depending on the choice of the window, there is still potential for it to be an administrative approval unless there's an exception needed. I just wanted to throw that out there. Just for what it's worth, since it is a non-primary, and while there would be a window, potentially a window opening change, additions aren't approved within 10 feet of a facade, a primary facade, but this is an alteration, and I'm seeing addition, the word addition in the code, but not alteration. But I can look a little closer just to be sure.
Madam Chair, I could address that in the motion.
Maker of the motion, Mr. Guida, Member Guida, go for
Sure. it. So in case 2022, well, I guess I don't know how I would address that in the motion. I could say that this case needs to be postponed to a date certain if they're returning with an exception, but if not, are we approving it?
Okay, this is
kind of a funny thing.
Okay, that did not sound like a motion to me.
No, it's not a motion. It was a question, Madam Chair, for Carly.
Oh, I think I believe the direction really needs to be chosen by the applicant here in order to either postpone or not, or approve with a compliant window. it can be done either way, but I think if you don't have an approval, and you do decide to go with a window that is not a 3/1, then you're still coming back to the board because you don't have an approval yet, because it's a postponement.
Actually, the direction should be taken by the applicant from the board, and the board in the making of a motion needs to be very specific as to why this is being postponed. Member Katz.
Yes, I would make a motion to approve the application in all respects except the north window in the former garage, and not approve that, and postpone consideration of that until a date certain, with the option for the applicant to make unnecessary coming back if she wants to do it in a way that would be compliant, but if she wants the exception so that it would be 3/1, for instance, that she could come back on the date certain.
And is that date certain and needs to be stated? Carly?
It does, before an exception to be noticed, if it does require an exception, it would have to be June 14th.
Okay.
Thank you. And is there a second to Member Katz's
Madam
motion?
Chair, I'll second with one friendly amendment just to clarify that the windows are to be true divided light.
Yes.
Member Beachside.
I support giving the applicant some flexibility here. I'm just worried that by approving everything except for that north garage window, that we might inadvertently prevent her from reconsidering the west elevation window, which is being added for egress.
There's no west elevation window. It's just the east elevation.
Sorry,
in the
east,
bedroom.
yeah, the east one, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like, if she didn't want to change that one, then I'm not sure if we're unnecessarily restricting her to not changing the other windows. If that makes sense.
That could be administrative.
Okay.
My sense of that is that the east window in the garage, former garage, is quite visible, and it would be nice to have it changed, as she has wanted it changed.
Unless she decides to go with 3/1, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, so
well, I mean, if she decides to go for 3/1, then she could come. You know, she's coming back on the 14th of June, and she could say, "I know you approved this the other way, but I'd like to do it this way."
Okay. Yeah, that's maybe we can just hear from the
that's
applicant.
the option that the applicant has. So, okay, I think that motion is clear, and we will vote. We will take a roll call vote.
Okay, Member Beachside?
Yes.
Member Bienvenue?
Yes.
Member Guida?
Yes.
Vice Chair Katz?
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you, and I thank the applicant. Next case is located at 718 Gregory Lane, and this is Angela's. Angela, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to share this. I guess I'm still sharing. Okay. This is 718 Gregory Lane, which is case 2022-005172 HDRB. This is in the Don Gaspar Area Historic District, and the building is non-contributing, and the applicant would like to alter the front elevation, the front entryway, by removing these overhangs. And I'll just back up, and I'd like to describe this house as it is in your packet. It's mostly Spanish Pueblo Revival style with its wall dominated masses, stucco masses and parapets, slightly rounded. It also appears to have Mission Revival style details that include these two shallow overhangs with decorative red glazed tiles and this arched garage door, as well as over the, you can't tell in this picture, the front door. There's another picture just for another angle. And the window, a small ramada structure is tucked in between those facades on the front elevation. So it has a blend of styles, and it was built in 2016. So to back you up, I didn't provide an aerial, but Gregory Lane is located off of West Buena Vista. This is pretty much the boundary of the Don Gaspar Historic District. So the applicant proposes to, okay, this is looking north and the house front is this, that's right, this direction. The applicant does want to remove the overhangs and put a new flat portal. I'm going to go to the elevations now and make this existing look like this, a flat, more somewhat, it's not territorial, but it's flat, and unify the front elevation of this house amongst this facade and this facade and this facade by increasing the heated space under this portal by, excuse me, the portal will be 140 square feet larger, and this portal will be a cantilever of about 4 to 5 feet at the southeast corner to line up with the existing pilasters on the north end of the east elevation. The facade will be reclaimed wood, and the portal's gutter will be redwood. The applicant also proposes to add, go back to the floor plan, this will become heated space. The ramada will be removed. With respect to the front door, just putting a window in this to be cut into this existing wood door, and a transom atop that window, and or excuse me, no, the transom's going above here, the double set of French doors with the transom window here. The window and door trim will be Anderson's red rock, which will match the existing residence's window and door. And no changes to the existing yard wall, but the gate, let's see, the gate will be replaced. This is the gate. The steel at the gate screen door will have a charcoal finish, and the stucco will match the existing, which is Pueblo. So that concludes, oh, and the applicant provided this rendering of the finished project. And staff recommends approval, finding that it meets the standards of the general design standards for all the H districts, as well as the design standards for the Don Gaspar Area Historic District. And that concludes my portion of this.
Oh, thank you, Angela. Member Katz.
Yeah, I'm puzzled, Angela. There's something that if we can, the heated space. Can we go to the floor plan that shows heated space? Where's the east wall on that new heated space?
This is the portal overhang. I can see.
Yeah.
And where does this go?
I mean, there's no east wall on heated space. It's not going to be very well heated.
It's addressed. It's addressed in the floor plan, Frank. It's pretty much where that line ends in space.
This right here?
Yeah, I assume it's.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly where it is.
Thank you, Carly.
Thank you.
Any other questions, board members, for Angela at this time? It appears not. So let's get the applicant sworn in.
He was, there we go. I have an owner.
The owner, and what is the name of the owner?
Steve McCormick is the applicant.
Is he the person that's going to be commenting?
To my knowledge, yes. Otherwise, the owner is Marty Dubin or,
Okay.
yeah, should be
Hi,
Steve
can
McCormick.
you guys hear me now?
Yeah, is this Steve McCormick?
This is Steve McCormick. I'm actually on
Okay,
the owner's.
you need to get sworn in.
Okay, I'm ready.
Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Steve McCormick, 318 West Gomez, Santa Fe, 87505.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. McCormick. What do you have to tell us about this project?
I would just maybe describe the scope of work in a little bit more linear, what for me is a more linear fashion. The heated space is right where the trellis is. I think you guys got that. Yeah, that's the heated space there. And then, so in adding that space on, we decided it was time to put a more substantial portal that could address these sort of disparate mission elements. So we're replacing the existing roofs with a new portal that ties the facade together. The only other thing is the gates. Both gates of the yard wall are to be replaced. If you want to go to the rendered elevation, I could talk about the materials. The new window and door, the new door with transom is at the heated space. The windows will match the existing, the red brick is the name of the color, I think. The wood will be recycled. We want to use a recycled beam and fascia to sort of get some authentic aged wood. So the beam, which is shaded there because it's under the overhang, would be wood, and then the fascia behind the rain gutter. So the rain gutter also matches the windows and doors with the same red. And then in the front of the drawing, we see the new gate, and behind it, I should have mentioned there's a screen door, a new screen door over the existing entry door. And furthermore, the existing entry door gets a window cut into it to bring some light into the entry, and it will be a divided light to match the other windows.
Chair Rios. I can't hear you. Can everybody hear Chair Rios?
I can't hear Chair Rios either.
I can't either.
Maybe I'll take over until she gets back on. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. McCormick? Seeing none, let us go to the public hearing. Does anyone from the public have any comments on this case?
We have Kathleen Parks. Please unmute. Kathleen.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to swear you in. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Kathleen Parks Yost. I live at 723 Gregory Lane.
Thank you.
Okay.
And
I'm a
what-
neighbor of the Dubin.
Okay,
Frank, thank you. I think, can you hear me now?
yes, we can hear you now.
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Parks, yes, you have the floor. What are your comments?
I've lived here for more than 10 years, and people on the north side of Gregory Lane talk with each other all the time. The neighborhood in general, but especially the north side, the houses that see the Dubin's house are very supportive of the remodel and think that it will improve the look of the neighborhood. So I just wanted you to know that we are very supportive of this application.
Thank you very much. Oh, I don't know why they're being repeated. Help. Are you guys hearing me twice?
Nope, just once.
Okay, I'm hearing myself twice. Okay.
Try lowering your volume a little bit.
Yeah, this is very disconcerting to me. Okay. I'm going to take it back to the board members. Member Katz.
I have a motion, if that's appropriate. In case number 2022-005172 at 718 Gregory Lane, I would move to approve the application as submitted.
Wait a second.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Beachside?
Yes.
Member Bienvenue?
Yes.
Member Guida?
Yes.
Vice Chair Katz?
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you very much, and thank you, applicant.
Thank you.
We will go to case located at 908 Canyon Road. This is Carly will present.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Share screen on portion of the packet again. Okay, well, we are looking at 908 Canyon Road. Excuse me. And this is a contributing building to the downtown east side historic district. The application is for window and door replacements. We're looking at the facade diagram. And I'm going to zoom way in because the application, excuse me, is for the replacement of the historic windows and then one door. The door is 1A, and then we also have 11, AA, CC, BB, and DD. Here I'm going to go down to the part of the packet so we can take a look at the different facades. Okay. So it's a single family residence located off the street with little public visibility. It's construction in a Spanish Pueblo revival style. We're looking at some of the windows here. It's built in 1955. And the board designated the status in 2016. So the elevations 1 through 4 and 7 as primary. I'll go back up to that in just a moment. But now the applicant wants to replace all the historic steel windows on the structure with aluminum clad wood windows, colored dark bronze. I'm just going to go down here to some of the other facades. This door is a candidate for, or it's requested for replacement. This is BB. that is also requested for replacement. And I can go to the others to be sure because they're labeled at the end of the packet here. BB, again, a little sideways shot there. CC is also requested for replacement, and we just saw it on one of the adjacent facades to that. And I believe we have DD just below, and another large steel casement window here. And then the application also requests to restucco in Elray buckskin. And then see, staff found that the exception criteria have been met. I know it says, but the board may find that they have that, you know, upon further testimony, but that usually is not there when we put that in our recommendation, or at least when we find that exception criteria have been met. And with that, I'll flip back up to the facade diagram so we can take another look at that 1 through 4 of the the primary facades there, and plus number 7 those are the primaries. And those little hexagons there are the windows, and the circles are the doors. Staff recommends for approval of this application and finds that it complies with the general design standards and the downtown and historic district, and finds that the exception criteria have been met. With that, I'm going to turn it over to the applicant, which is Richard Martinez, unless board members have questions for me at this moment.
So Carly, is this a wholesale replacement of windows?
Let's see, I know we are, the request is to replace all the historic windows. So that's one thing that I think needs to be further clarified, because, you know, only the primary facades would require it to come to the board. That is not specified in the staff report. So I believe the applicant is better equipped to answer that for this one, since Daniel is not here.
Thank you. Member Benvenue.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Just before we get to the applicant, Carly, I just wonder if you can clarify staff's position. I don't know if you can or not, since this was Daniel's recommendation, but I thought I was under the impression that staff and the board were essentially in agreement that these steel frame single pane windows did not qualify for replacement unless they were not capable of being repaired. And in this case, there's no indication that that's the case. And instead, the exception criteria, the exception request seems to be based on insulation, the desire for greater insulation, which again, I was under the impression that staff and the board did not agree with that as being justification for an exception for a replacement of historic windows. And we had that lengthy presentation in January that from our historic consultant that I thought reconfirmed that. So could you address what seems to be a discrepancy, at least in my own mind, between those two positions?
Yes, thank you, Member Bienvenue. I understand it as a discrepancy as well, because generally we look at, you know, as we did in that presentation, look at the, you know, whether or not they can, like, repairing these is difficult. Yes, steel casement windows are very difficult to repair. And when they have cracks, panes can be replaced. And then the ability to repair them is an important factor. And I'll state that in the code, there is the allowance to replace panes of glass when necessary and with thermal panes. those are definitely options. But I don't know how well to state this, but yes, there's discrepancy here generally that this is doesn't quite align with how normally we coach windows. But I think maybe I'm missing something here, as that was a part of another discussion.
Okay, I appreciate that. Maybe we'll see if there's any clarification when we hear from the applicant. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? It appears not, so let's get Richard Martinez sworn in.
Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Richard Martinez, P.O. Box 925, Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Thank you.
Hi, Richard.
Hello.
You have the floor, so tell us about all these windows that you're wanting to replace. Is it a wholesale window replacement?
It is a wholesale window replacement. We intend to replace the windows on the non-primary facades, and we are asking for the exception to replace the windows also on the primary facades. The windows and the doors would be replaced because we want to make this house to be usable and up to modern standards. The steel casements that exist on the house, according to the window study, which was done by Ray Patterson, he says, quote, "The steel casements on the subject house are non-insulated glass and will condensate sweat. They are not energy efficient and will be a constant issue to the exterior stucco and the interior plaster maintenance. These units will not accept insulated glass as the glazing shelf on the windows is not large enough. The only alternative would be some energy efficient is to replace the steel casement windows or some type of storm windows." The fact is that there's two factors in these repairing windows. One is the panes of glass themselves, and one is the sashes themselves, how the sashes close, how they keep out air, things like that. The replacement of the glass doesn't address those issues. It doesn't address the issues of the whole window. We're also, these windows sweat. They allow the cold from the exterior to travel into the interior, where the humid air that is in a house would condensate on the windows and cause damage to the plaster and to the stucco and to the wall itself. We would like to make sure that we protect this house and replace the windows. We intend to replace the windows with similarly sized windows. We're not intending to change any of the openings. We're intending to replace the windows in a way that maintains the divisions that exist. And you can see the backside, there's steel windows on the backside as well as on the front side. We are intending to replace the windows on the backside on the non-primary facades. We're proposing to replace all the windows for coherence, so that the windows all read the same way from one side to the other. I also have Joseph Carnes here, who can address any questions about the exceptions that we have. Oh, I also want to mention that this house has a separate address than the main house, but it is the guest house. It's on the same lot as 906 Canyon Road. And so that's why on the address, I say 906/908, because that is the address. This is the guest house of the house 906. Thank you.
Okay, so clarification, Richard, what is the address of the guest house?
It is recorded as 908. That's the address that it's given. I don't think they give addresses like this anymore, where it's actually a separate number. I think it's 906A or 906 and a half, things like that. But at the time that this house was built, it has a separate number.
Okay, so Richard, there is a main house and this evening, the board is looking at the guest house. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay.
Behind the main house, behind the main house. That's why it is not visible from the street.
Okay, and can you show us the elevations, the existing and proposed? Carly? And in the meantime, I will ask Member Benvenue to, he has his hand up to comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Mr. Martinez, just the same follow-up question to you that I was asking to Carly. I don't know if you were, you participated in many of these, and I'm sure I can't recall specifically in the recent window cases we've had, whether you were involved in them, but the board has pretty consistently been ruling that we followed the ordinance very strictly about replacing historic windows on primary facades only in the event that they can't be repaired. And I believe that we have been pretty firm on taking the position that a desire for better insulation qualities has not been sufficient grounds to satisfy the exception requests, both because that's not what's set out in the ordinance. Secondly, it would apply to every person who ever came before us seeking to replace historic windows. And thirdly, at least from what we learned from our architectural consultant a few months ago, there's very little difference in insulation value between the single pane and double and even triple pane glass itself. And that feeling that people get from it feeling colder when you have these steel single pane glasses is due, in fact, usually to some leakage, which can be addressed through repairing the windows, through weather stripping, and through interior and exterior storm windows. So given all of that, and what I think is the board's position, and also the sustainability issue that has also been raised, which is that this is a massive waste of resources to destroy these older windows in favor of windows that typically last 15 to 20 years. Is there anything unique about this request that would not apply to every other steel casement windows on the primary facade?
In our exception criteria, the window assessor, Mr. Patterson, advises that these window units will not accept insulated glass because the glazing shelf on the windows is not large enough.
Right. But we already, as I said, we don't consider that to be a justification because the glass itself is, you're changing from an R1 to an R2 or an R3, which is not significant enough to be the issue there. But what about this condensation, this additional condensation argument? Is that something unique to this house, or is this just something that we know applies to everybody that's got steel casement windows?
Modern steel windows have a bridging that the metal from the outside does not actually go to the inside.
No.
These windows do, yes.
No, I mean, I'm not making myself clear, I think. I'm talking about what would be different about this house than anyone else who has historic steel single pane windows on a primary facade. Is there anything unique about the condensation that's occurring in this particular house compared to any other house that's historic and has that same type of window?
Not that I can think of.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Anything further, Member Benvenue?
That's all. Thank you.
Member Guida?
Hi, Richard. Question for you, and I apologize in case I missed it in your presentation. What are you proposing for the window replacements? I didn't see, new elevations. I'm assuming you're proposing to match closely, but what's the window type and material?
The window type that we're requesting is metal clad wood windows of the same configuration and sizes of the existing windows.
Are there any compromises with the appearance between the wood and the metal? I mean, they'll look like metal outside, right? But in terms of dimensions or anything like that?
I think that the outside frames of the windows would be could be different sizes, but the divisions of the windows will be the same.
Okay, and I guess I'm sympathetic. I understand the points that Member Benvenue made, and there are instances in which storm windows can be applied, but I'm very sympathetic to the condensation issue, and I wonder, is it feasible to put in the winter when it condensates the most? I mean, would a storm window on the outside fully address that issue or not?
It may, but there may be some compromises to the actual stucco details, the bullnose details on the outside of the windows that would have to be to accommodate those storm windows. Right. I have been able to replace the metal windows on non-visible facade buildings before. This is not the first time that this has come up. I know that the board and its view of things has changed over the years, but I don't think that what we're asking for is unreasonable. We're going to replace the windows on the non-primary facades, and what we're asking for is that we have a coherence between the non-primary facades and the primary facades, and we replicate the windows as much as possible with windows that would be insulated and would close properly.
I agree, it's a reasonable request. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Guida. Any other board members wishing to comment at this time? It appears not. I will take it to the public. Anyone from the public? Joseph Carnes, yes, you have been sworn. Were you sworn in?
No, he hasn't been.
Okay. If you would kindly swear in Mr. Carnes, and he'll have the floor.
Okay. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Thank you.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Joseph Carnes, 125 Lincoln Suite 221. I'd like to make one point and ask one question of Member Bienvenue. We have a difference of information as to the R value difference between the existing windows and the proposed windows. I don't have the exact R values of the proposed windows in front of me, but my clients advise that they have both solar and a very modern, hang on a second. Their air conditioning system and their heatings and their solar system, they're very conscious of being energy efficient, and this is important to them. That's why they're replacing all the windows of all the facades. My question to Member Bienvenue is, can you speak to which of the three criteria for granting an exception your position with respect to the inapplicability of a difference in R values and damage to the home from condensation and sweating, et cetera, falls into? Thank you.
Sure, I can address that. First of all, my view or what I expressed about the difference in our values is by no means my expert opinion on that subject. I was just repeating what the window preservation expert that was brought before us in January to discuss this issue stated. And her statement was the difference in the panes themselves is the difference between R1 and R2 or R3. So very relatively insignificant amount of insulation. So we come back to the fact that the code specifically states that historic windows on primary facades shall be repaired or restored whenever feasible. And that's what the ordinance says. So that's our marching orders. And essentially, as long as I've been in Santa Fe, which is well over 40 years, I guess now, this has always been an issue, wanting better insulated windows when people have old single pane ones, and the board has, been dealing with that over many years, and it's never really been completely resolved. But in more recent times, at least since I've been on the board, we have seemed to have coalesced around the idea that we enforce the ordinance as written, and that the desire for greater insulation in and of itself is not sufficient to justify any of the three exceptions. And that there are alternatives to getting better insulation and better comfort that do not require the replacement of the windows themselves when they can be repaired. And as I just stated, those are specifically repairing them so that they fit better, because it's usually a gap someplace that's causing the problem. Weather stripping when those gaps cannot be removed, and then interior and exterior storm window options. And I've had to deal with that in houses myself, and I know many, many people all over the historic districts have had to over the years. So that's I agree with that view, and I do think that that's been the view as we've been enforcing it in all the cases I can recall in recent times.
Thank you, Chair Rios. Member Bienvenu, if I could just follow up briefly. That's exactly why we're asking for the exception. We understand the ordinance, and that's the basis for the exception request, both the concern about the performance of the windows, as well as providing for a cohesive appearance to the home with respect to the balance of the windows that do not require an exception. And I'll just submit that we can get together the information about the R value difference. We believe strongly that there is a substantial difference, more than R1 to R2 or R3. And I appreciate the consideration. Thank you.
Yeah, and just to follow up on that, I would also just add that, I think the board has also taken the view, and I do as well, that if the desire for greater insulation value was sufficient to justify the exception criteria haven't been met, then it would be met in every single case. And I just don't think that that's a reasonable view of the ordinance.
Thank you for your comments, Member Bienvenu, and also Mr. Carnes. Member Guida.
So just a few thoughts on that. I think, while I have a lot of access to the preservation logic of retaining original windows or replacing them in kind, the R value discussion is not limited to the window itself. There are dramatic differences between the R values of new and old windows, of single and double and triple glazed windows. I think the argument is that for historic buildings on the whole, the window replacement in and of itself is the overall R value of the building is not dramatically increased. And that is some of the basis of that logic and discussion. Also the longevity and just the kind of carbon footprint, as Member Bienvenu pointed out correctly before. In this case, I agree with the applicant that there is that we do have an exceptions process. We talked about the exception criteria in an earlier case being interrelated. I think that the discussion of I wouldn't limit the discussion of hardship to installation values. As the applicant has pointed out in their criteria responses, this is about ongoing maintenance and operations costs for the building, the need to re-stucco because the windows are a liability and a hardship because of condensation and that interaction with the stucco. Moreover, I think it's in our interest to, to not, have these kind of unintended consequences of strict rulings on our ordinance. I would hate to see this building, with improved windows on the 3 sides that are not primary, and these legacy windows on the ones that are on the facade that is primary, just because it's the letter of the law. We have an exception process for that. With that, Madam Chair, if there isn't any further discussion, I'd be happy to make a motion.
I need to ask for further public comment, and let me see, Member Beachside has a comment as well.
Right. My reading of the code requires us, in order to grant an exception, that there's some demonstration that the historic windows on the primary facades of a contributing building are not repairable or restorable. And I don't see that in this application. I think it's just an argument that they need to be repaired, really. So how do we get around that? I mean, I think there's 3 windows on primary facades out of the, 18 or 20 they intend to replace. I don't think that is an unreasonable preservation of what was there historically.
Thank you, Member Beachside. I'm wondering if the board, since there is one primary facade, which is the east facade, and I believe this has been brought up, are board members going to allow all the other windows in non-primary facades to be replaced and the ones on primary not to be replaced? I would like to hear from you. But I'm just wondering what your stance is.
Madam Chair, that's my understanding of how the code should be applied, and how we've done it in the past is to require the primary facades on a contributing building to retain and restore or repair the historic windows while allowing the replacement on non-primary facades.
Any other comments, board members?
I agree with that. The code provision that is the sticking point here that I believe we have to apply is the one that provides that it's primary facades of contributing structures. In that instance, historic windows must be restored or replaced, must be restored or repaired unless it can be demonstrated that they cannot be, then they can be replaced in kind.
Thank you. Vice Chair Katz. Vice Chair Katz, I believe you're muted.
I'm sorry. That's my understanding also. And looking at the primary facades, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 7, every visible window except one are on those facades. And so if the other ones in the back on the west facade are changed, well, we don't much care about that because that's not visible from anybody. I think there's a wall right back there. And so I think the argument that, this would, if we kept these, it would clash with the new ones we're going to put on the back. Well, I don't think that really amounts to much.
Thank you for your comments, board members. I will entertain a motion at this time.
I don't think we've had public comment, have we?
Yes. I looked for public comment, and Mr. Carnes was the only one, and no one else has his or her hand up.
My apologies.
So, yeah, no problem. I will go back to the board and hang on. Attorney Ruppeli, did you have a comment?
Well, I think I should comment that I don't believe there's anything in subsection D, subsection 5, that we've been quoting regarding historic windows shall be repaired or restored wherever possible. that makes it more immune from exceptions than any other design standard. That is true. Member Bienvenu is correctly citing subsection 5A of subsection D of 14-5.2, that for all facades of significant landmark structures and for the primary facades of contributing structures, historic windows shall be repaired or restored whenever possible. Historic windows that cannot be repaired or restored shall be duplicated in the size, style, and material of the original. And it goes on from there. It does read thermal double pane glass may be used, but with respect to exception criteria, which is found in subsection C5D, it reads the board may recommend exceptions to subsection 14-5.2D 1 through 8 and 10 through 11. And the code section regarding historic windows being repaired or restored is subsection D5. So I think the way we have to read the code is that historic windows shall be repaired or restored wherever possible. But if the applicant can persuade the board or can conclusively demonstrate and the board make a positive finding that for some reason there should be an exception, there is nothing that makes the replacement of historic windows any more immune from exceptions than any other design criteria under subsection D.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. I think it's just clearly coming before us to see whether exceptions are established.
Thank you, Attorney Rubelee. And I think in the end, the decision always rests with the board. We do have exception criteria and they can apply to windows that are on a primary facade. And if the board feels that the exceptions criteria have been met, then I would say that the board would give a stamp of approval to that. But if they feel that it is not met, the exception criteria have not been met, then that stamp of approval is not given. In other words, obviously the decision rests with the board.
And also, Chair Rios, if I could just add one other thing. With respect to replacement of windows on non-primary facades, I believe that since there is no exception criteria required for replacing windows on non-primary facades, the only question is, do the replacement windows comport with historic district design standards? There's still the question that those windows on non-primary facades meet the historic district design standards, but exception criteria doesn't apply because the restriction is for primary facades of contributing structures. There are also restrictions for significant and landmark structures, but this isn't one of them. So with respect to contributing structures, the restriction on replacement of windows applies only to primary facades.
Right, that is a very good point that you brought up. Those the windows that are not on primary facades, do they meet the design standards? That is obviously something that the board has to consider. Mr. Martinez, you have your hand up.
Yes, I would like to point out. Can you mute? I would like to point out that only the east facade is called out as a primary facade. So it's not just the back that's not primary, it's the sides of the house that's also non-primary. So it's facades 5, 6, and 7 that are not primary facades. It's only 1, 2, 3, and 4 that are.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Attorney Rubelee, did you have something further?
I did not. I'll take my hand down.
Member Guida.
Madam Chair, I agree with the city attorney. I do recognize that we have an exceptions process here. I would also point out that in past cases, we have made exceptions on window requirements for the district standards because of congruence with the rest of the design structure. We've often found that the that the rule to have, one publicly visible divided light window on an otherwise non-divided light house seems to be silly, and we've used the exception process to make a rational decision in those cases. I think this is one of those cases. I think this is not, something that is on the, and this is, as much as I like metal casement windows, and the look of them and all of that, the challenges of them being installed in adobe structure and the condensate, I recognize as a hardship, and one that should be acknowledged in our acceptance of these criteria. I'd make a motion unless there's further discussion.
Member Katz has his hand up.
I'm puzzled. I'm puzzled because we're told that the replacement windows would look just like what's there. And then we're told, oh, but if we're forced to keep the metal windows, it will clash with the other replacement windows. Huh? That doesn't make sense to me. What is it? What are the replacement windows? Are they going to look just like what's there now? And if so, leaving what's there now would not clash. Thank you.
Did you wish to respond, Mr. Martinez? No. Okay, I will entertain a motion.
In case 2022-005-166 HDRB 908 Canyon Road, I move that the board approve the application as submitted, finding and agreeing with staff that all of the criteria, the exception criteria, have been met by the applicant, most notably the hardship that's incurred by the condensation affecting the sustainability of the stucco and construction of the wall on an ongoing basis.
Do I hear a second to this motion? I do not. The motion dies for lack of a second. I will entertain another motion. The remaining board members, Member Beachside?
I'll make another motion in case number, sorry. 2022-005-166 HDRB at 908 Canyon Road. I move to approve the application as submitted with respect to the window replacement on the non-primary facades, but require the restoration or repair of the windows on the primary facades 1 through 4, which I believe are windows BB, CC, and DD. And noting that the exception criteria, in particular with respect to criteria number 3, which requires that the applicants consider the full range of design options, including repair of the windows, was not met, and that the assertion that the windows have outlived their useful life is something I don't agree with. And I think that that equates to windows just requiring maintenance rather than not being functional any longer.
I would second.
Okay, and were you going to address that the window pattern? Were you going to say anything about the window pattern on
Sure.
the windows that are being replaced?
I'll just clarify for the replacement windows on the non-primary facades that the replacement shall be replicating the size, the style, the light divisions, and the material with respect to metal cladding over wood of the original windows, so that they are the same in appearance.
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Member Beachside? Member Beachside?
Oh, sorry, yes.
Thank you. Member Bienvenue?
Yes.
Member Guida?
No.
And Vice Chair Katz?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion has been approved.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Mr. Martinez.
Thank you.
And we will go to the last case on the agenda, which is located at 1202 Cerro Gordo. This is Angela's case. Angela, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. And you can see my slides, correct?
Yes.
Hello? Yes. Oh, okay. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah,
I know.
we
It's
can
the end
hear
of the evening. Last case. So the subject property is 1202 Cerro Gordo Road. It's a this aerial, I circled it on the map because Cerro Gordo runs down here and it's a little hard to see except that it's 2 stories. So that is it in relation to its streetscape. This is the approach. As you go up the hill, this is the structure. That's the structure. And this is some more photos of the structure from the west and the south. It's an approximately almost 3,000 square foot, two-story family residence. It's non-contributing to the downtown and the East Side Historic District. It's definitely a vernacular New Mexico house with shed, gable, and hipped roofs. Its original construction probably dates back to before 1928, but the bulk of the house was built in the early 1940s. The house has been through many changes and additions throughout the years, which brings it to its non-contributing designation in 1996. It was originally 1 story. It's undergone several alterations. The applicant currently proposes a extensive remodel, mostly interior, window replacement for the entire structure, replacements. Many are a variety of non-historic aluminum sliders. The replacement windows will fit within the existing openings, except for where they will be altered for egress. And the new windows will be simulated divided light, clad in chestnut bronze. This existing cantilever balcony will be shored up and supported by new columns and a guardrail and stucco to match the existing house. The chimney will also be stuccoed to match the house. No changes are proposed to the historic rock wall. Mortar will be applied and patched as needed. There's really the minor addition is for an interior staircase that'll be located right here. It's maybe 44 square feet total. The stucco will be L-raised straw to match the existing, and all the corners will be rounded, and wood accents will be Sherwin-Williams Hill Country stain. So the applicant's presenting her plans here this evening, and staff recommends approval based on compliance with the general design standards for all the H districts, as well as the downtown and east side design standards. And that concludes my portion of this presentation.
Thank you very much. Board members, any questions for Angela? So they're planning on doing simulated divided light as opposed to true divided light windows.
That's correct, Chair Rios.
Okay, thank you. And let's see, who is the person here that needs to get sworn in?
It's Carrie Dodson.
Okay, let's get.
Architect.
Okay.
Hello.
Carrie Dodson?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, let's get you sworn in.
Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Carrie Dodson, P.O. Box 33200, 87594.
Thank you.
Good evening. What do you have to tell us about this project? And can you tell us why they are, the applicant is choosing, the owners are choosing simulated divided light as opposed to true divided lights?
Yes, may I share the screen?
Please do.
It's not letting me, someone else needs to end, so
I just stopped sharing.
okay, great. All right, here we go. Well, to answer your question about the simulated divided lights, it's cost prohibitive for the clients to do a true divided night. They're on a very tight budget with a large project on their hands. And we're doing our best to meet all the standards with our resources.
Thank you. And did you have anything more to add?
Can you see the drawings?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'll just take you through the project. Let's see. So it's existing and you can see right here where my mouse is. Can you see my mouse?
Yes.
So that's going to be a proposed stair addition. And the reason for that is due to the nature of the structure and how it currently is with so many things going on inside. It's easiest to get a stair to code just outside of the existing structure. The proposed balcony extension here is already balcony, as you can see up here. We're just extending it out and we're going to add columns below for structure. Currently, this wraparound balcony is cantilevered with 2x4s. It is very unsafe, and so we're just trying to get this thing safe for the occupants. That is the existing floor plan, you know, several rooms, what was a little back apartment, and we're turning it into a 3-bedroom, 3-bath family house, single family. Let's see, let me get to what y'all would like to see. So here's the elevation. This is the, if you were, you know, standing on Cerro Gordo looking down the street, this is the elevation you would see. The bottom one is the existing, and you can see we're adding all the windows in the existing openings, and we're going to do the simulated divided lights. And we are going to, I'm proposing to do it with the spacer in between, and those are, I mean, pretty convincible when you have the spacer in there. And then we're going to raise parapets around where we can to kind of, you know, create more of the Pueblo effect and be more cohesive in the neighborhood and add canales. This is the east elevation. This is existing. You can see here this wraparound balcony is supported by 2x4s, no guardrails. And so obviously we need to bring it up to current code and make it safe for the occupants. This is where they enter. This is the new stair addition. The stairway will be going in this volume. This is where we're raising the parapet to the existing high point, which is 1 inch, I believe, above the standard. This right here is where we're extending that balcony and adding some columns. The entry way here, we're going to raise the parapet where we can, where it's cost effective. Once it gets to this area that is on the street that comes right off of Cerro Gordo, we're going to keep it as a gable because it's too much to have to redo for my clients. And then this is that street elevation coming off Cerro Gordo, and we're replacing the windows, doing the stucco. We're not adding columns there because that actually is existing over a property line. So there's not a lot we can do there. We're just going to make sure it's structurally sound with the existing structures, with the existing cantilever as it is. And we're not, the roof is actually in good shape in this area, according to the inspector. And so we're going to just leave that alone for now. On the balcony back here, we are adding parapets to create a guardrail and canales. And you can see right now, currently there's no guardrails, and that's the current roof profile. And we're raising the parapets to create a nice clean look to go better with the neighborhood. So that's the design intent. And do you guys have any particular questions that I can address?
Let me see. Members of the board, do you have any questions for Ms. Dotson at this time? Any comments? It appears not right at the moment. Let me see if anyone from the public wishes to comment on this case. Anyone from the public wishing to comment? I don't see any hands that are up. Let me see, Member Guida.
Madam Chair, just a comment. I recognize that simulated divided lights with dividers between the glass are better than simulated divided lights without dividers between the glass. They pretty closely look like insulated true divided light windows. So I would agree with the applicant that this is an attempt to do as best they can within the client's budget.
Thank you for your comments. Member Benvenue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to follow up on that same comment, which I agree with, I also, in my mind, differentiate this from the prior case where we mandated divided lights on the basis that it's just a completely different property. Of course, in an ideal world, there'd be no simulated divided lights anywhere on the east side, but that's not the perfect world we live in, nor is that mandated by the code. It's when you have disharmony, in my mind, with an existing facade in particular, or the structure as a whole, that the simulated divided lights become a problem, and that the board then has the authority to mandate actual divided lights. And this particular case, in my mind, does not call out for that.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else? Member Guida, did you have something further, or are you ready to make a motion?
I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay.
I do want to applaud the applicant on a job well done. It's a difficult design challenge with this existing building. Drawings were very clear, and I appreciate the presentation. In case 2022-005171 HDRB 1202 Cerro Gordo, I move that the board approve the project as submitted and agree with staff's recommendations.
That's good second.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Member Beachside?
Yes.
Member Bienvenue?
Yes.
Member Guida?
Yes.
Vice Chair Katz?
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you, and thank you, Ms. Dotson.
Thank you.
Next, discussion items. Carrie? Carly, also known as Carly. Oh, God.
That's okay, Madam Chair.
Well, calling member Benvenue Beachside.
None for tonight.
Nothing. And any matters from the board? Board members? Nada?
Madam Chair, I have a.
Oh, wait. Attorney Rubalid has something, and so does Member Guida. Attorney Rubalid.
Thank you, Chair Rios. I just wanted to let you know that for our next meeting, which will take place on May 24th, I will be unavailable. I'm traveling to the East Coast for my daughter's college graduation. And the assistant city attorney covering for me on May 24th will be Mr. Kyle Hibner, who is the municipal court prosecutor for the city attorney's office. Very talented gentleman. Nonetheless, he's new to this process, so I expect you all to be on your best behavior and
Be gentle.
yes, go easy on him. And I have passed along Ms. Picarello's information to him so we can get in touch with her. I'm pleased to announce that my daughter will be graduating from Princeton University with a degree in architecture, and that she also has been admitted to the Graduate School of Architecture there at Princeton University.
Oh,
and
wow.
Also, yes, something we're very happy about. And also, she has been attending Princeton University under a full tuition scholarship. My wife and I and my mother-in-law was very gracious, has helped her with room and board. But the scholarship she got to attend the Graduate School of Architecture covers not only her full tuition, but has a full room and board stipend carries with it as well. So it looks like I may be able to retire sometime within the next few years.
Well,
Congratulations.
As you can tell, I'm very proud of her.
that's
And
exactly what I was going to say. Congratulations to you, to her, and to the entire family, and you have reason to be proud.
and her interest in the field of architecture is historic preservation, but for some reason or other, she hasn't expressed an interest in coming to Santa Fe. So maybe I can talk her, I'll talk to her.
Okay, thank you. Member Guida.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's wonderful, Frank. Congratulations. Madam Chair, just two observations kind of in line with our previous discussions about process and efficiency. I think I think one thing that I've observed is that we often have two interrogations of one of staff and then one of the applicant. And I'm wondering if we can bring those together in the interest of time. I find that when we've done that, it's gone a bit quicker and with no loss in terms of the information relayed. And I guess the second point would be, we had not a tremendous caseload tonight, but a lot of our cases on any night are status cases. And I know that another topic that was brought up during that discussion was looking for another mechanism to process those. We put a lot of time into the discussion of status cases. Staff puts a lot of time into their presentations and their case reports. We talked about the possibility of a subcommittee making recommendations, a subcommittee of the board making recommendations to the board that we're just going to vote on. I know that it also may be possible to hire a qualified historic preservation consultant to bring those same recommendations before the board, saving both the board and the paid staff that same amount of time. And I hope that that's something that we can continue to talk about. I know there's some stuff on the city side, but also for the volunteer board as a way of streamlining our process given the number of cases that come before us.
Thank you, Anthony. Any other questions? Not questions, but comments? If not, I think we did actually. I think we did pretty good tonight. And I heard what you were saying about asking the planners questions. Sometimes I think those are necessary, and those answers sometimes have to come from the planners. But we're hearing you, Anthony. Tonight it's like about 3 hours, so not too bad. 3.5 hours. Our next meeting is going to be May 24th. Is everyone planning on being there in person?
Yes.
I hope so. Okay, good. And so we'll see you there. And of course, we'll see you for the preservation awards. And is there a motion to adjourn? We are at 9:09.
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second. Beachside.
And roll call vote.
Member Beachside.
Yes.
Member Bienvenue.
Yes.
Member Guida.
Yes.
Vice Chair Katz.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Well, thank you. Thank you, everybody. And we'll see you in person. I hope we totally recognize each other. And well, we'll see each other at the Preservation Awards, actually. Good night. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.